Chapter 1645. Unlin and the others were greeted by a scene that sent chills running down their spines. Under the blue sky, an earthy yellow divine dragon blotted out the entire sky. Each time it flapped its wings, gale-force winds would sweep up for over 100 kilometers. However, that wasn't the main point. The main point was that there were a dozen or so figures standing on its back. There was a primordial demonic bear with spiky fur all over its body. There was a 1,000-change divine monkey clad in a suit of golden armor. There were 7 heaven pioneers stage great generals. There were 2 heavenly human tribe living beings whose cultivation bases even Enlin couldn't fathom. There were 3 divine beings with paramount divine halos above their heads. Enlin didn't know who they were, but they all exuded an aura that he couldn't afford to mess with. They were undoubtedly heavenly god-level powerful beings. There were 15 enemies in total. There weren't many of them, but each and every one of them possessed astonishing power that could crush an entire realm. Dongfang Zhuangshi's eyes widened, and his flesh crawled. What kind of army was this? He was just an ordinary little beast at the Tao integration pinnacle stage, and he was only here to retrieve something important. What did he do to deserve such a lavish treatment from his enemies? With this in mind, he turned to Enlin with an exasperated expression. Do they want to kill you this badly? Enlin rubbed his nose with an awkward expression. Uncle, you know that I'm quite popular among the heavenly human tribe. Dongfang Zhuangshi felt like his liver was hurting. You call this King popular? This was called hatred to the bone, right? I regret it. How'd I end up on the same boat as you? Dongfang Zhuangshi wailed with grief. He regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. He really wanted to smash his own head with a punch. What was he thinking that made him decide to return to the kingdom of the 9 states with Enlin? When the heavenly gods saw him leaving with Enlin, they would definitely think that he and Enlin were accomplices. There was no way he could clear his name now. Instead of complaining, why don't we think about how to resolve our current predicament? Su Xiaolan suggested. Enlin heaved a faint sigh. I finally understand why Xiao Fu told us to enjoy our final moments. Who would have thought that our enemies would be so terrifying? He, Su Xiaolan, and Dongfang Zhuangshi had been through an arduous battle, and they were already quite exhausted. Even at their peak, the 3 of them could only deal with one heavenly god if they joined forces. But now, there were 5 heavenly gods in addition. There were 3 Tao integration stage, super mighty figures, and 7 heaven pioneer stage great generals. No matter how he thought about it, it didn't seem like there was a way out. This was a hopeless situation. It's very likely that heavenly venerate Yu Qiong's heaven and earth whale of anguish has drawn them here. Tina speculated. Let's think about how to solve our current predicament. Su Xiaolan reiterated. Tina's expression instantly collapsed. It's exactly because I can't think of a way to solve the problem that I'm saying things that are wise in hindsight to ease the tension. Hearing this, everyone began to feel stifled. That's right. What method could he use to break out of this situation? They wanted to say some nonsense to ease the tension. They couldn't think of anything else to do. At this moment, the earth-shattering roar of a primordial beast erupted in the distance. Roar. Sect leader Enlin of the 4-9 Immortal Sect, I didn't think you would have the guts to invade our sinister spirit beast cesspool. The primordial demonic bear's aura erupted into the heavens. You killed the divine bat emperor and heavenly venerate Yu Qiong, and you still want to run? Don't be too naive. Today is the day you die. I'm going to use your blood to pay tribute to the dead divine bat emperor and Yu Qiong. Enlin shot a cold glance at the primordial demonic bear. A Tao integration initial stage piece of trash doesn't have the right to bark here. Someone else talk to me. Roar. The primordial demonic bear flared up with rage. At this moment, a mighty voice erupted. Enlin, are you surprised? An extremely tall and broad man in a cloud and mist heavenly robe with an unfathomable aura around him spoke. A faint smile appeared on Enlin's face. I didn't think that you would mobilize so many heavenly gods just to kill me. I remember that you're all guardians, right? Do you want the Northern Heavenly Gate anymore? We have our own considerations, so You don't need to worry about that. An ethereal heavenly god sitting on a divine throne chuckled in a gentle voice. A heavenly god with sharp fangs protruding from his dark features spoke in a cold voice. Unlin, we're already monitoring your every move. There's a spell formation in a radius of over 5,000 kilometers to kill you. You can't even use voice transmission talismans here, and no one will respond to you. If you surrender and enter the soul realm, the heavenly soul god will grant you a more comfortable death. Unlin's eyes flashed, and a smile suddenly appeared on his face. I surrender. Can you spare my life? Oof. Unlin, you've killed so many heavenly gods and heavenly human tribe, heavenly gods of our heavenly Tao, and you still want to live? Don't you know that you've already been listed as one of our top 10 must-kill living beings? A white ball with an extremely beautiful divine halo above its head roared. Unlin's lips twitched imperceptibly. Top 10 must-kill living beings? It was quite a depressing thing to be held in such high regard by the heavenly Tao. It was no wonder that 5 terrifying heavenly god realm existences were sent to stop him. Sigh, couldn't they have come one by one? Unlin expressed his strong disapproval toward the heavenly god's attitude toward his enemies. Even though he was in despair, he couldn't show it. He could only maintain his calm facade and try to stall for time. I possess the power of many heavenly gods. Don't you think it's a pity to kill me? If you accept my surrender, I can definitely be of great help to you. The green-haired heavenly goddess chuckled. All right, we can accept your surrender. Our mission is to kill all humans. Kill that woman next to you to express your sincerity. Boom! An extremely terrifying aura erupted forth. It was as if a paramount god had descended from the heavens with raging flames of fury. The primordial demonic bear and 1,000-changed divine monkey were both struck by an instinctive sense of horror as they stared at the white-robed man in the distance, as if they were going to be engulfed by his flames of fury in the next second. Not only them, but even the green-haired heavenly goddess was struck by an indescribable sense of pressure. That aura was clearly targeted at her. So be it, I've changed my mind. And Lin's eyes were imbued with a paramount divine might. I really don't like you, so I'll kill you first. All of the heavenly gods smiled indifferently, as if they were looking at an ant struggling on its deathbed. Unlin's storage ring flashed, and a jade talisman appeared in his hand, which he immediately crushed. There's a jade talisman that can transmit coordinates here. The heavenly soul god's expression darkened, and it waved a hand through the air, upon which an invisible soul power cage appeared between heaven and earth, isolating everything from the outside world. However, at this moment, a bolt of golden void lightning tore a massive hole into its cage. An invisible aura passed through the hole before disappearing into the boundless void. Hurry up and come here. A Grandmaster Construction Cultivator. And Lin spoke with an excited expression. Chapter 1646. The Grandmaster Construction Cultivator had once given Enlin a jade talisman. This was a jade talisman exclusive to high-rank members. He only had to crush the jade talisman, and the Grandmaster Construction Cultivator would immediately rush over to him. This was the supreme VIP service for high-rank members. This was so that they could construct houses for high-rank members in a more timely manner. Of course, Enlin didn't crush the jade talisman, this time for the sake of constructing houses. He was merely interested in the special nature of the jade talisman. The aura imbued within this jade talisman was so powerful that it could even break through the barriers set up by his enemies. The Grandmaster Construction Cultivator still held all of her VIP customers in high regard, and she strived to provide the best service possible. Otherwise, she wouldn't have created such a high-rank communication jade talisman. The two sides were just about to engage in a fierce battle. At this moment, a crack suddenly erupted in the air. Space cracked open. A pair of long, slender, and seductive legs emerged from the crack, followed by a red short skirt, a slender waist, and an F-grade chest. Ayaya, my dear Enlin, you finally have business for me? An excited and teasing voice sounded as a gorgeous woman with a voluptuous figure emerged from the crack. And Lin was astonished. That fast. He had only just crushed the jade talisman, and she had already appeared. Was this the treatment afforded to high-rank members? You're in luck. I just so happened to be gathering construction materials nearby, the Grandmaster Construction Cultivator said with a smile. She then surveyed her surroundings, upon which she was completely dumbstruck. There was a gigantic lizard divine dragon, a powerful primordial demonic bear, a dangerous thousand-change divine monkey, 7 heaven pioneer stage heavenly humans, and 5 heavenly gods. At this moment, they were all looking at her with enmity in their eyes. The Grandmaster Construction Cultivator's flesh crawled as she turned toward Lin with an expression as if she were going to eat him alive. I'm busy, so I'll be taking my leave. Mother asterisk her. The two groups of people were obviously going to fight, yet they had summoned her here. It was obvious that they didn't have good intentions. Boom! At this moment, a paramount power instantly enshrouded the entire space, sealing it. This was the power of the heavenly gods. Don't even think about informing them. The heavenly soul god spoke in an indifferent voice. The master construction cultivator. No, I don't know how to tip him off. I'm not familiar with him, Lin. I thought he came to ask me to build a house for him, so I came. The master construction cultivator tried her best to explain. A smile appeared on the heavenly soul god's face. It's very easy to come here, but it won't be that easy to leave. Why should I believe you? Instead of letting you leave, wouldn't it be safer to let you stay here forever? After all, the dead can't talk. They knew what to do and could minimize the number of variables. The fact that the master construction cultivator could come here was already a variable for Lin. How could they let the master construction cultivator leave? Lin, UF asterisk king screw me over. The Grandmaster Construction Cultivator immediately cursed, and cursed in Lin's 18 generations of ancestors countless times in her heart. She was only here to do business, but she was dragged down by Lin just like that. How could she not be angry? Lin spoke with an excited expression. Celestial Maiden Lin Sinew, I really can't think of any other way to ask for help. You claim to be able to instantly traverse through worlds, so you must have a way to get out of here. Please save me. The Grandmaster Construction Cultivator. I'm here to build a house, not to save someone. You drag me down with you, and you still have the face to ask for help? The Grandmaster Construction Cultivator chuckled coldly in response. All of the enemy heavenly gods and mythological beasts were also looking at Lin with mocking expressions. You want to escape from our paramount laws? The heavenly soul god chuckled. So be it. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get rid of them. The heavenly illusion god spoke in an indifferent voice. Lin took a deep breath before unleashing his most powerful attack. I have money. I'll give you 50 million spirit stones to get us out of here. He knew that the Grandmaster Construction Cultivator was not to be underestimated. She was the most powerful spatial manipulator on the entire Tai Chu continent. After all, how could she not have a sense of space? The Grandmaster Construction Cultivator was the #1 construction cultivator on the entire Tai Chu continent. Aside from that, transforming a house from imagination into reality required an unparalleled spatial manipulation ability. No matter where the high-ranking members were, the Grandmaster Construction Cultivator would be able to get to them as quickly as possible. This required her powerful spatial manipulation ability, and she was also the best runner in the world. Hence, Lin believed that the Grandmaster Construction Cultivator would be able to get them out of here. This was their best hope. However, at this moment, a golden jade-like snail crawled out of the Grandmaster Construction Cultivator's soft, fair breasts and said indifferently, 50 million? Are your lives only worth 50 million? Lin, Su Xiaolan, and the others all shuddered upon hearing this. They knew what Holy Lord Tian was implying. It wasn't a question of whether or not they could be saved, but rather whether or not they had enough money. Lin was ecstatic. In terms of money, there were probably very few people on the entire Tai Chu continent who could surpass him. 100 million. As long as you can save us, I'm willing to pay 100 million. And Lin was extremely excited. My golden snail shedding technique not only expends a vast amount of energy, but it also expends a vast amount of resources to recast its shell. Aside from that, I can only take one Grandmaster Construction Cultivator with me. As for you, Holy Lord Tian, was antennae were still glaring at Enlin. Enlin took a deep breath. I'll pay 200 million spirit stones. All you have to do is tell Chun Chun, the Celestial Arch, and Patriarch Zhu in our coordinates. Tell them to come and save me. The little snail was perplexed. That will take time. They probably won't be able to save you in time. You don't have to worry about that, and Lin assured. Deal. A smile appeared on Holy Lord Tian's face. Deal. And Lin heaved a long sigh of relief. At this moment, atop the divine dragon, they're discussing how to get out of here. The male heavenly human tribe, heavenly god, was surprised. What an arrogant bastard. Do you think we heavenly gods don't exist? A beautiful heavenly goddess with curly green hair looked at the snail in the distance with a disdainful expression. You're just a foolish living being who doesn't know what power is. The heavenly soul god stepped forward. In an instant, an invisible force came from all directions, sealing the surrounding void into an iron bucket. If the heavens wanted to trap someone, how could they escape? However, it was also at this moment that a divine light suddenly erupted from Holy Lord Tianhua. It began to grow bigger, turning from a small snail to a maverick snail. Xi and you come in, Holy Lord Tianhua yelled. It then began to shrink back into its massive golden shell. Not only did it shrink its head into the shell, but even its soft, semi-transparent body also shrank into the shell. The Grandmaster Construction Cultivator also entered the snail's shell without any hesitation. The heavenly soul god harumphed coldly, and its paramount soul power crashed into the snail's shell. Boom! The snail's shell exploded. However, the space above it was completely empty. Holy Lord Tianhua and the Grandmaster Construction Cultivator had already disappeared. Chapter 1647. What? They disappeared? The heavenly soul god's pupils contracted drastically. Its mouth gaped open, and its two fangs bared. An expression of shock appeared on its pale face for the first time. All of the Tao integration stage, mythological beasts, and Heaven Pioneer stage, great generals were astonished to see this. Holy Lord Tian were really escaped with the Grandmaster Construction Cultivator? Did he just run away in front of 5 heavenly gods? Did it have to be that crazy? It was just a snail, and Lin clenched his fists with elation on his face. What a beautiful golden snail. He had made the right bet. Holy Lord Tianhua and the Grandmaster Construction Cultivator really were the most powerful beings on the Tai Chu continent who had mastered the Tao of space. They were able to escape from 5 heavenly gods with ease. This was a feat that he could boast about for 10,000 years to come. How could this be? A perplexed expression appeared on the heavenly goddess' face as she murmured to herself. She had just been mocking the Grandmaster Construction Cultivator for overestimating herself. But the fact that the snail and the Grandmaster Construction Cultivator had escaped just like that was a vicious slap to her face. The heavenly illusion god's eyes flashed as it spoke in an ethereal voice. That golden snail shell is connected to another world. Holy Lord Tianhua used all of the essence in that snail shell to forcibly break through the barrier we set up and escape to another world. That works? The passageway between the 2 worlds follows it wherever it goes? Doesn't that mean it's carrying an entire world with it? The heavenly goddess exclaimed. The heavenly illusion god shook its head. No, even a god of creation wouldn't be able to carry a world that we can't invade with us. It's only using the energy accumulated within the snail shell to forcibly create a passageway between the 2 worlds. This method is extremely costly, and it's very difficult to use it repeatedly. The heavenly soul god chuckled coldly. So what if 2 informants escaped? As long as Enlin doesn't escape, everything will be fine. By the time reinforcements arrive, Enlin will have died over 1 million times. That's true. Our target has always been Enlin. Let's make our move as soon as possible. The countless black spheres surrounding the white sphere shone brightly. I don't know where he gets his confidence from to think that he'll be able to last so long in the face of our attacks. The green-haired heavenly goddess chuckled as she slowly pulled out a thin, jade-like sword. She waved her hand in the air. The sharpness of the sword pierced through the void, splitting the earth and the hundreds of mountains in the distance into two. Just a casual swing of his sword was comparable to a full-force attack from heavenly venerate Yu Qiong. Remember, the one who killed you is Wu Ming. The green-haired heavenly goddess aura completely changed at this moment, and all of her disdain vanished. She was like an unsheathed heavenly sword, and the boundless sharpness emanating from her body threatened to slice even the heavens in half. The muscles on the muscular golden-haired male heavenly god's body bulged, and his enormous power caused the space around him to collapse into a dark black hole. Remember this before you die. I'm heavenly god Long Kuei. The heavenly soul god's divine halo surged, and a peculiar grayish-brown power surged for over 500 kilometers as it spoke in a cold voice. Wu Ming, Long Kuei, don't use the power of your divine halos in this battle, in case you receive backlash from the heavenly Tao. All you have to do is deal with the other living beings aside from Enlin. We'll take care of Enlin. I am reality, and this world is dazzling because of reality. The ball slowly rose into the air, and a divine halo of an indeterminate color emanated an intoxicating light. The light was imbued with all of the colors of this world, and it was extremely beautiful and captivating. Regardless of whether it was Enlin or Su Xiaolan, all of their expressions were entranced by the light, as if they had forgotten everything else. However, in the next instant, Enlin's heart jolted with shock, and the wind divine halo above his head erupted with a burst of wind of absolute power, which enshrouded himself, Su Xiaolan, and the others within. I am an illusion. Everything in this world can materialize in my realm. The indistinctly discernible heavenly deity stood up from the throne. Behind him, a great 1,000 worlds suddenly appeared, flourishing for all ages. An extremely terrifying suction force swept through heaven and earth. It was going to drag everything in this world into the world it had created. All of the heavenly gods unleashed their powers, and their auras surged forth like the wrath of the heavens. If it weren't for the fact that Enlin was unleashing his heavenly wind power with all of his might, they would have most likely been severely wounded by the combined auras of all of the heavenly gods. Ha. Do you see that, Enlin? How are you going to fight us? A cruel smile appeared on the primordial demonic bear's face. Do you still think you can fight us now? Heavenly god Long Kuei spoke in a cold voice. Enlin really wanted to bash all of the heavenly gods, but he knew that there was no way he could survive in a battle to the death like this. He wouldn't be able to last until reinforcements arrived. However, there was no need for him to persevere. Let me tell you another piece of unfortunate news. A mysterious smile suddenly appeared on Enlin's face. There's no need for me to fight you. There's no way we're going to fight, not in this lifetime. Enlin pulled Tina onto his palm with a smile. Little Na, let's go to the divine mirror world. Tina faltered initially before a brilliant light erupted from her eyes. Su Xiaolan and Dongfang Zhuangshi also came to a sudden realization. No wonder Enlin had been so calm this entire time. It turned out that he had already thought of a way out. That's right, they were just discussing the possibility of escaping into the divine mirror world if they encountered an invincible enemy. Who would have thought that they would have to use that idea so soon? At the very least, the heavenly gods who were restricted by the heavenly Tao were unable to interfere in Tina's world. A white light erupted from the fairy's hand. However, right at this moment, the power of the three heavenly gods began to seep into Enlin's heavenly wind power. This was the first time that Tina had encountered resistance, and it was an extremely fearsome resistance. However, she was extremely decisive, and a series of golden vein patterns appeared all over her body. Her aura soared explosively, and the golden divine seal on her forehead also erupted with energy fluctuations. "Open up." There was a determined expression on Tina's face as she swiped a hand through the air. The heavens shattered, and chaos was born and destroyed. An expression of astonishment suddenly appeared on Enlin's face. This was a very familiar scene. This was Patriarch Zhu Yin's god of creation technique. Tina had only seen it once, and she was already able to use this power? Just as everyone was in shock, they had already been enshrouded by a ball of white light. The powerful and domineering spatial energy dragged them out of this world. Heaven and earth fell silent again. The five heavenly gods stared blankly at the empty space in front of them. The great generals and mythological beasts were all dumbstruck. Where did they go? They had used their divine halos and prepared to fight, but now they were gone. The high and mighty heavenly gods were struck by the urge to throw up blood for the first time. Chapter 1648. Heaven and earth were deathly silent. The heavenly gods were feeling extremely awkward. Why was this scene so similar? That's right, Holy Lord Tian had also escaped from right under their noses in the exact same manner. They were initially able to accept Holy Lord Tian was escaping. After all, it wasn't their target. But now, they had done everything they could to surround Enlin, only for Enlin to escape from right under their noses. This was like a second slap to the face. If news of this were to spread, the reputation of the heavenly gods would be tarnished. How did he escape? Wu Ming's mouth gaped open with incredulity. What a powerful spatial force. They must have escaped into a different world. The heavenly soul god took a deep breath before explaining. Furthermore, he didn't establish a passageway between the two worlds. Instead, he used his own body as a passageway to enter the world he created. The world he created? Isn't that fairy at the Return to Void pinnacle stage? The thousand-changed divine monkey was astonished, and he used his own body as a passageway. Isn't that the same as carrying a world with him? How could he use something that even a god of creation is unable to do? Wu Ming was also perplexed. She was quite powerful, but she wasn't omniscient and omnipotent. Everything that had just happened had clearly exceeded her imagination. Furthermore, she was struck by a sense of rage and indignation as she recalled the smug expression on Enlin's face when he escaped. They had been slapped in the face again. Holy Lord Tian was escape was a small slap to the face, but Enlin's escape was a large slap to the face. The heavenly gods had set up an inescapable net with confident expressions on their faces, only for Enlin to escape into an alternate world with a sinister smile on his face. There was no way they were going to chase after him. What a disgrace. All of the other heavenly gods were also at a loss for words regarding Tina's uncanny ability. She created a world at the Return to Void stage, and she can even carry a world with her. It looks like Pavilion Lord Tina of the Realm Pavilion has to be re-evaluated, the heavenly soul god said in a cold voice. All of the mighty figures fell silent again. There were simply too many unexpected things that had happened. The Grandmaster Construction Cultivator, Holy Monarch Tian Snail, had appeared out of nowhere, and Tina had unleashed a power that was beyond the imagination of a god. All of them felt like things had become quite troublesome. The black spheres around the heavenly reality god all streaked through the void. They lined up at the spot wherein Lin and the others had disappeared, forming an extremely terrifying killing formation. A portable world has a fatal flaw, and that is, if you want to return to this world, you have to use the coordinates of the place you left as the starting point. All we need to do is wait. The heavenly reality god spoke calmly as it set up a slaughter formation. What if they never come back? Heavenly Goddess Wu Ming asked. The heavenly reality god. If Enlin calls for reinforcements, we might be the ones surrounded. A concerned expression also appeared on Long Kuei's face. He wasn't going to underestimate a god of creation, nor was he going to underestimate the heaven-crushing sect and the heaven-mending sect. The heavenly reality god. Although he didn't want to admit it, if he didn't take it seriously, it could very well become a reality. How did a one-sided victory devolve into such a state? The heavenly illusion god heaved a forlorn sigh. Perhaps we should ask the heavenly heaven god for help. He controls the heavens and realms, so he might have a way. Oof. He's a lunatic who advocates for the destruction of all living beings on the Tai Chu continent. Are we really going to ask him for help? The heavenly soul god was a little displeased. They loved all living beings in this world and had no desire to communicate with a lunatic like the heavenly heaven god. There's no other way. Asking him for help is the best option. The heavenly illusion god was very calm. I'm sure he would be very happy to see us destroy such a massive obstacle. Haha, I'm afraid that what it wants to see is us perishing together with the human race. That way, no other heavenly gods would be able to stop him from destroying all living beings on the Tai Chu continent. The heavenly reality god was also very displeased with the heavenly heaven god. The heavenly reality god's words were most likely the real reason why the heavenly heaven god and the heavenly life god hadn't done anything in the past 100 years. They weren't in a hurry at all. They were waiting for the power restricting them to disappear. That would be the time for them to truly erupt. Meanwhile, within the divine mirror world, Enlin, Su Xiaolan, Dongfang Zhuangshi, Tina, and Gluttony were currently recuperating within the immortal realm in the core of the world. Tina, don't forcibly use the power of the heavens to help us recover from our injuries. Contending with the truth of the Tai Chu continent will only worsen the backlash you receive from the outside world, and Lin interjected. Tina's features were already a little pale, and her eyes had also become dim. One had to realize she was the goddess of this world. When had she not been radiant and radiant? When had she ever been so feeble? Su Xiaolan was also very distressed, and she scolded her in a stern voice. Only then did Tina retract her hand in a sullen manner. She had already suffered a backlash when she helped Enlin cleanse heavenly venerate Yu Qiong's power of the divine Tao. Now, she wanted to use the power of the divine mirror world to help Enlin and the others recover from their injuries on the Tai Chu continent. It's all right. This is the place with the most abundant vital energy in the entire divine mirror world. Even without your help, Xiaolan and I will be able to recover in no time. And Lin held onto Su Xiaolan's hand as they slept together in a coffin. He kissed her on the cheek with a smile. Sleeping together in a coffin can be so blissful and sweet. This must be the pinnacle of sharing life and death together, right? Dongfang Zhuangshi sighed with emotion upon seeing this. He was very envious of Enlin and Su Xiaolan, and if he had the chance in the future, he wanted to sleep in a coffin with Dongfang Mingjie as well. Of course, it would only be for a short while. Everyone began to recuperate. Jine and Lin, what do we do now? Tina asked as she ate some immortal fruits from the immortal fruit garden. What else can we do? We'll just hide. And Lin rolled his eyes. Dongfang Zhuangshi nodded in agreement. The Heavenly Human Tribe United Army is determined to kill Enlin, so it's very likely that they're waiting for us outside. Even if we recover from our injuries, it's still best not to go out on our own. We'll just have to wait for reinforcements to arrive. Su Xiaolan smiled. Tina nodded. Then I'll release a small scouting device every once in a while to observe what's going on outside. If Chun Chun and the others come, then we'll work together to destroy these Heavenly Human Tribe United Army. Wow, who would have thought that little Na would be so hot-blooded? A gratified smile appeared on Enlin's face. We've been bullied so badly, so we have to retaliate. Tina waved her fists through the air with an enraged expression. Tina opened up a passageway and released a scouting device as she spoke. Chapter 1649. That detector was formed from an insignificant wisp of Tina's divine sense. She was able to convey everything she saw to her master immediately with her first sight. The detector, which was constructed from a divine technique and was identical to Tina, tore open a spatial rift and snuck back to the Tai Chu continent. She was then greeted by the sight of 5 heavenly gods looking at her expressionlessly. The terrifying slaughter formation was still operating, and a monstrous killing intent emanating from its body had already solidified to a substantial extent, making the surrounding space viscous and even frozen. This was an extremely terrifying scene. Just the aura emanating from it was enough to make a Tao integration stage super mighty figure piss their pants. However, the detector had no emotions, after all. Her expression remained unchanged, and she looked at the 5 heavenly gods as well as the Tao integration stage and Heaven Pioneer stage mighty figures with a wide grin as she pulled out 5 spirit fruits from her mouth. These are fruits that Goddess Tina told me to give to you. You must be tired waiting for us outside, so have some oranges to quench your thirst. Little Tina grinned. Boom! A terrifying power imbued with boundless killing intent crashed down. Little Tina didn't even have a chance to do anything before she was pulverized into nothingness. Along with the 5 spiritual fruits, they were also annihilated. A heavenly god's wrath was enough to destroy an entire realm, let alone these little things. Spirit fruits? This was obviously a blatant humiliation. Heavenly Goddess Wu Ming was already gritting her teeth with rage. You cowards have the gall to send people to mock us. They're most likely using the humanoid figure to monitor our movements. The heavenly soul god's expression darkened slightly. They're very cautious and won't come out until reinforcements arrive. Now it's up to the heavenly heaven god to do something. Within the divine mirror, a vast amount of information flashed through Tina's eyes before she heaved a forlorn sigh. Our reinforcements haven't arrived yet, and the heavenly gods have already surrounded our return coordinates. As expected, they won't give up so easily. A knowing expression appeared on Lin's face, and he wasn't all that surprised by this. Do you think the Grandmaster Construction Cultivator will be able to deliver the message? Will they really come to save us? Dongfang Zhuangshi was feeling very uneasy. Don't worry, there's no need to doubt the credibility of the Grandmaster Construction Cultivator. And Lin waved his hand in the coffin. As for the person who will come to save us, I don't know about the others, but Qinshan will definitely come. The second heavenly disciple of the heaven-crushing sect will definitely come. Dongfang Zhuangshi was astonished. To be honest, he thought that the second heavenly disciple of the heaven-crushing sect was the least likely to come. After all, the second heavenly disciple of the heaven-crushing sect was even more revered than God of Creation stage beings in the eyes of all living beings on the Tai Chu continent. Why would he risk his life to save Lin? Su Xiaolan couldn't help but burst into laughter upon seeing Dongfang Zhuangshi's expression. Uncle, and Lin isn't lying. You're only surprised because you don't know how close Lin and Qinshan are. Dongfang Zhuangshi was even more curious now. What kind of relationship? A super strong friendship. Su Xiaolan gave a thumbs up. Then, she felt that it was strange to describe it this way, so she changed her words and said, a super strong friendship. Lin, Dongfang Zhuangshi was astonished again. Lin, you have a super strong friendship with the second heavenly disciple of the heaven-crushing sect? Qinshan is an even more mysterious and powerful being than a god of creation. How did you manage to have such a strong friendship with him? Could it be because of the few times you fought alongside him? In his memory, the only interactions between Lin and Qinshan were during their battle against the heavenly time god in the opposite shore realm, as well as during their extermination team battle. Lin couldn't be bothered to respond to Dongfang Zhuangshi. Dongfang Zhuangshi probably wouldn't believe him even if he told him that Qinshan was treating him extremely well for some reason, so he decided to remain silent. Dongfang Zhuangshi's curiosity was finally extinguished by Lin's cold and detached attitude. However, he didn't repress his imagination in an attempt to find some clues from Lin's experiences. As it turned out, people really did do some boring things when they had too much time on their hands. Dongfang Zhuangshi had already envisioned Lin and Qinshan fighting side by side, surviving a series of perilous situations, going from strangers to close friends to one another in the end. In the end, they were even willing to lay down their lives for one another. What a strong friendship. Dongfang Zhuangshi suddenly sighed with emotion. Lin, why was he suddenly saying that? Was he retarded? I've cultivated for hundreds of thousands of years, and I actually had many brothers, but all of them are dead now. They were either killed by more powerful beings or died of old age. Seeking Tao really is a lonely thing. Tears welled up in Dongfang Zhuangshi's eyes, and a rare emotional expression appeared on his face. Don't worry, I'll always be with you. And Lin suddenly interjected from his coffin. We're brothers too. Dongfang Zhuangshi shuddered upon hearing this. Brother? How long has it been since I've heard you call me that? Tears welled up in Dongfang Zhuangshi's eyes. And Lin continued with a passionate expression. I'm not a brother without a sect. My 4-9 immortal sect is a very big family. Are you interested, Brother Zhuangshi? Dongfang Zhuangshi's emotions faltered upon hearing this. He pondered over the sentence. Why did it feel like a trap, as expected of an old monster who had lived for countless years? And Lin, you've gone too far. I see you as a brother, but you're trying to trick me into joining the sect. How is that a trick? And Lin was immediately displeased. How can a cultivator's relationship be called a trick? I'm giving you a clear path. And Lin spoke with an excited expression. Aside from the Celestial Court, which other sect in the entire Kingdom of the 9 States is as bad *SS as the 4-9 Immortal Sect? Joining the 4-9 Immortal Sect isn't a bad thing, is it? This. Dongfang Zhuangshi's mouth gaped open, and Lin didn't give him a chance to speak. The first-rate power on the Tai Chu continent, the Snow Maidens, is only a pavilion of the 4-9 Immortal Sect. The first-rate power, the Blood Tribe, has pretty much all been subjugated by the Blood Pavilion. The Dragon Pavilion and Flame Pavilion have 2 Dao integration stage cultivators each. Not only that, but our Bai Ling can crush the heavens, and our little Tina can come and go as she pleases even under the attacks of 5 heavenly gods. Our sect leader, I don't need to elaborate further, right? Let me ask you, is there any other sect on the entire continent that's as bad *SS? And Lin spoke in a solemn voice. Dongfang Zhuangshi was speechless. An incomprehensible expression of grief appeared on Lin's face. Brother, I'm only inviting you to join us because I've conquered so much for you. Otherwise, why would I, and Lin, do something like this? All right, I'll believe you. Dongfang Zhuangshi's flesh crawled. I'll think about this after some time. And Lin and Su Xiaolan were ecstatic. Within the sinister spirit beast cesspool, a spatial crack appeared. Little Tina reappeared in the void of space. She was stared down by the death gazes of the 5 heavenly gods, as well as the heavenly human tribe great generals and Dao integration stage mythological beasts. But she remained fearless as she tossed a few piles of extremely smelly feces at them. Poop, heavenly god. Chapter 1650. The heavenly gods had guessed that Tina's detection device would descend upon the Tai Chu continent again. However, they didn't expect that the detector, which had politely given them spirit fruits last time, would suddenly change its attitude and throw feces. How audacious! How audacious! No, it was the audacity to throw feces at the heavens. The heavenly gods instantly exploded. A terrifying shockwave descended from the sky. Everything within a radius of 50 kilometers was pulverized into nothingness. Little Tina and the piles of stinky feces were naturally not spared either. Even though none of the heavenly gods were struck by the feces, they were all enraged. They hated Lin and the others to the bone. The heavenly gods were revered beings who represented the might of the heavens. It was not an exaggeration to refer to the heavenly gods as the true heavens. Ever since they had appeared in this world, no living being dared to show them any disrespect. But now, even a detection device dared to throw feces at them. This was utter humiliation. Damn it, if I can capture Lin, I'm going to shove feces into his mouth. Wu Ming's eyes were filled with boundless fury, and her chest trembled with rage. Achoo! And Lin suddenly sneezed in the divine mirror world. What is it? Su Xiaolan asked curiously. Nothing, and Lin waved his hand. I'm probably too popular, so I'm being targeted. At this moment, Tina burst into laughter outside the coffin. There was an enchanting smile on her face. Why are you so happy about releasing a detection device? Dongfang Zhuangshi was perplexed. Could it be that reinforcements have arrived? Gluttony was excited. Tina waved a slender finger with a smile. Not yet, but I've successfully enraged the heavenly gods. It feels great. Everyone drew a sharp intake of breath. Enraged the heavenly gods. What's so great about that? and Lin was a little flustered. He was hoping that the heavenly gods would grow impatient and leave. But Tina was attracting hatred like crazy. What the hell was going on? Tina raised an eyebrow as a disdainful expression appeared on her face. I like to see them annoyed by me, yet unable to kill me. Dongfang Zhuangshi was astonished. He didn't understand what this fairy was thinking. And Lin thought about it for a moment before giving Tina a thumbs up. Well done. Tina was encouraged, and she continued to search for the smelliest shit in the divine mirror world before sending it to the heavenly gods outside with her detector again and again. Again and again. The heavenly gods waiting outside were so enraged that their mouths were contorted. They were just waiting for their prey, not waiting for **T. Why did he use Tina to throw poop at them again and again? The key was that they could only watch and not fight back. They had lost all the dignity of the heavens. Heavenly goddess Wu Ming's curly green hair stood on end from rage, and she gritted her teeth as she looked at the rift that was opening up again. This is the 8th time. This is already the 8th time. Never would I have thought that living beings in this world would dare to throw poop at me. And they're getting more and more excited. The heavenly soul god's expression darkened. Calm down. They won't be able to do this for much longer. The heavenly heaven god has already decided to come here, and what awaits them is the most despairing death. Within the divine mirror world, and Lin pulled out his Karma Star Protection Divine Disc and summoned Xiao Fu again. Hee, Xiao Fu, you silly thing, look at us jumping around. Lin sneered. Didn't you tell us to enjoy the last moments of our lives? Didn't you tell us to wait for our deaths? What about now? Xiao Fu sat on the crystal wheel with her hands plastered to her legs, and she looked around at her surroundings with a blank expression as she murmured to herself, That's impossible. Did you really change your fate? And Lin pursed his lips. Are you really a pinnacle divine tool? It would be great if you could refute me. At the very least, it would make you seem arrogant and bad *SS. But now, you're sitting on the crystal disc like an idiot. I'm really starting to suspect that I've obtained a fake divine tool. Xiao Fu's cheeks were flushed with rage. You're the idiot. You're the idiot. You're the idiot. And Lin, were they even insulting each other like this? All right. And Lin, how can you bully a little girl? Su Xiaolan tried to dissuade him. That's right. Don't stoop to her level. Divine tools have their own dignity. Dongfang Zhuangshi nodded in agreement and patted the little girl's head. The more sympathy she received, the more ashamed Xiao Fu became. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she was just about to dive back into the Karma Star Protection Divine Disc when her body was clamped between two fingers again. All right, Xiao Fu, I won't scold you anymore. And Lin heaved a forlorn sigh. Xiao Fu pursed her lips and didn't say anything, as if she were an aggrieved child. And Lin hesitated momentarily before injecting a burst of divine weapon origin energy into the Karma Star Protection Divine Disc. Xiao Fu moaned as her body trembled slightly. She looked up at Lin with rippling eyes. What kind of power is this? It's surging through my entire body, and it feels so good. The divine weapon origin energy can maintain a weapon, allowing it to have more energy and spirit, and Lin explained in layman's terms. Xiao Fu blushed as she murmured, Can you give me a few more? And Lin, all right. And Lin injected a few more bursts of divine weapon origin energy into her body, and Xiao Fu moaned with satisfaction. After being fed, Xiao Fu was no longer aggrieved. She lay on the disc with a smile on her face as she looked up and down at Lin with her large, bright eyes. This world has exceeded the scope of my karma divination, so it clearly possesses the ability to escape from karma to a certain extent. This is very surprising to me. Everyone's expressions shifted upon hearing this. As long as one was in this world, they were unable to escape from karma. This was a universally acknowledged fact. But the divine mirror world possessed the ability to escape from karma? That was a little scary. And Lin and the others knew that Tina's world was no ordinary world, but they didn't think it would be this bad *SS. The fact that you're able to do this has greatly increased your chances of survival. I've combined the special characteristics of this world to perform another karma divination. A smile appeared on Xiao Fu's face as she spoke with genuine joy. Congratulations. And Lin, Su Xiaolan, Dongfang Zhuangshi, and the others were all ecstatic. Your chances of survival have increased to 10%. Xiao Fu clapped her hands in celebration. And Lin, silence. Deathly silence. Wait, did I hear that right? And Lin repressed the urge to throw up blood. 10%? Are you sure you didn't hear wrong? Su Xiaolan was also in disbelief. Xiao Fu cocked her head to the side. I didn't hear wrong. Our chances of survival have gone from infinitely close to 0 to 10%. That's already very impressive. You little brat, don't tell me that you've become stupid after eating so much divine weapon origin energy. And Lin rolled his eyes. Setting aside the fact that reinforcements are on their way, even if there weren't any reinforcements, we would still have a 100% chance of survival if we continued hiding here. Ever since they entered the divine mirror world and received Tina's protection, they had never considered the possibility of death. Instead, they had been thinking about how they were going to retaliate. Throwing sh*t at the heavenly gods was a form of retaliation. The heavenly gods were about to explode with rage, but they still couldn't do anything to them. Once Chun Shun, Patriarch Zhu Yin, and the Celestial Arch called for reinforcements, their chances of survival would increase again. If they fought, perhaps they would be able to kill 1 or 2 heavenly gods in the sinister spirit bee cesspool. But now, Xiao Fu was telling them that their chances of survival were only 10%? What a joke. Chapter 1651. Xiao Fu was not enraged by everyone's skepticism. She offered a patient explanation as Lin had fed her. Don't you think it's very strange that the 5 heavenly gods are still waiting for you outside despite knowing that reinforcements are coming? Lin and the others all faltered upon hearing this. They had considered this before, but the heavenly gods were determined to kill Lin no matter what. Even if reinforcements were to arrive, they would still have to think about it. However, thinking about it carefully, the heavenly gods' actions were a little irrational. One had to realize that unless a paramount heavenly god appeared, no one would be able to stop Chun Shun. They couldn't be waiting here to deliver their lives to Chun Shun, right? As for what that was, Lin and the others didn't know, but they were starting to panic for some reason. Xiao Fu was finally starting to look like a pinnacle karma divine tool. She tapped her little foot lightly on the wheel, and every time she did so, the Big Dipper on the wheel would ripple. She spoke, all things are intertwined with one another, and they're ever-changing and ever-changing. If you want to change the outcome to the greatest extent and find a way to survive through karma, my suggestion is to fight. And Lin, Su Xiaolan, and Dongfang Zhuangshi were all astonished. They had finally managed to hide in the divine mirror world, but they were being told to fight again. An extremely terrifying heavenly god will break through the barrier of the divine mirror world and come in to kill all of you. Xiao Fu spoke with an extremely solemn expression. Tina, as the heaven of the divine mirror world, you have the highest chance of survival, but you can't protect anyone else. And Lin has the lowest chance of survival. And Lin's lips twitched. All the heavenly gods wanted to kill him, so his chances of survival were indeed very low. But we still have an advantage if we fight in the divine mirror world, right? In this place, Tina is an omnipotent god. Su Xiaolan offered her opinion. Xiao Fu chuckled lightly upon hearing this. Using the heaven of a lower rank to fight the heaven of a paramount rank? With all due respect, this is the equivalent of suicide. If Tina obediently transformed into the sky of the divine mirror world, then the heavenly gods wouldn't be able to do anything to her. However, if she uses the power of the divine mirror world to oppose the embodiment of the heavenly god, then that would be an act of insubordination, and she would face backlash from the paramount heavenly Tao of the entire Tai Chu continent. Xiao Fu spoke in an extremely confident manner, and everyone felt as if a massive rock were weighing down on their hearts. Patriarch Zhu Yin is also a god of creation. Didn't he say that even if the heavens invaded his world, he would be able to kill the heavens as well? and Lin was a little reluctant to give up. Xiaofu rolled her eyes. Who doesn't know how to brag? And Lin, everyone, these words made people want to vomit blood. The mighty image that Patriarch Zhu Yin had just established crumbled in that instant. As a god of creation, he wouldn't lie to a junior. However, it looked like Enlin had chosen to believe Xiao Fu, as there was no need for Xiao Fu to lie. I followed Tao Lord Luya in the past, and he's also a god of creation. However, he told me that the worlds created by them are of a lower rank than even the Tai Chu continent. Enlin's heart jolted upon hearing this. Not only did the starless sky of Slaughter Formation Disk belong to Tao Lord Luya, but even the Karma Star Protection Divine Disk was connected to him. Did he just accept 2 discs from that old man? Xiao Fu continued her analysis. The essential heavenly Tao of the Tai Chu continent is unable to destroy their heavens. But if they try to use the power of the heavens to attack the Tai Chu continent, then they would immediately be killed by the boundless backlash. Tina will die as soon as she attacks. So what advantage do you have if you attack her in her world? On top of that, your master is your main combatant, and he relies on his powers of the heavenly gods to fight, but he won't be able to unleash much of his powers in the divine mirror world. Everyone turned to Enlin again upon hearing this. Enlin tried to unleash his powers of the heavenly gods with a skeptical expression, only to discover that the heaven and earth of this world was involuntarily restricting his powers. Even if he tried his best, he would only be able to unleash less than 30% of his powers. When the heavenly gods descend into the divine mirror world, their powers will also be restricted by the subconsciousness of the divine mirror heavenly Tao. However, it would already be quite impressive if it could restrict even half of their powers. After all, that's the true heavens, so the divine mirror world wouldn't dare to go too far. Xiao Fu analyzed, and Lin also understood what he was getting at. If they fought in the divine mirror world, their combat prowess would be restricted even more. As such, it would be better for them to fight in the outside world. Xiao Fu, I didn't expect you to know so many things. And Lin's expression was filled with approval. He was beginning to see this artifact spirit in a different light. For example, even he didn't know that his powers of the heavenly gods would be restricted by the divine mirror world, but Xiao Fu was aware of this. Just this fact alone was enough for Enlin to prostrate himself before her. The little girl raised her head proudly. I can observe karma, understand the past and present, and peer into the future. This is what I'm best at. In terms of power, I'm even more powerful than some Tao tools. But all of this assumes that the enemy has the ability to break into the divine mirror world. Su Xiaolan's brows furrowed slightly. If the heavenly gods can't force their way into the divine mirror world, you don't have to worry about that, Xiao Fu interjected. The heavenly gods will definitely be able to break into this place. Su Xiaolan, what the hell was that supposed to mean? If you don't believe me, you can wait until the heavenly gods break into the divine mirror world before running out. They won't be able to insta-kill you anyway. Xiao Fu didn't really care about that. Everyone felt like this was reasonable. Let's see if the heavenly gods had the ability to break into the divine mirror world first. After hearing Xiao Fu's analysis, Tina continued to search for stinky sh*T all over the world before summoning scanners to the Tai Chu continent at an even faster rate and throwing sh*T at the heavenly gods. The heavenly gods were about to go crazy with rage, but they had nowhere to vent their rage. Apparently, lightning rumbled within a radius of over 500 kilometers in the sinister spirit beast cesspool. Gale force winds wreaked havoc within a radius of over 10,000 kilometers. These were all phenomena unintentionally triggered by the heavenly gods when they were enraged. It was easy to imagine what kind of apocalyptic disaster would ensue if they were to unleash their rage. Little Tina slowly tore open a spatial rift. She appeared in the air above the Tai Chu continent. She was just about to throw sh*T at the heavenly gods when her expression suddenly faltered. Little Tina raised her head to discover the gargantuan face of an elderly man with white hair. The face encompassed the entire heavens. She was nothing more than an ant in the face of that face. No, she was a microscopic organism. The face gave her the illusion that it was even larger than the sky. Its eyes were brighter than the sun, and its white hair danced in the wind like a series of true dragons. Its breathing was like that of the four seasons. A smile appeared on the face's face as it extended a greeting. I'm Heaven, the goddess of creation of the fairy world. Can I visit your home? Chapter 1652. Little Tina's expression faltered upon hearing this. This was a terrifying being that she could not comprehend. Even the face of the five heavenly gods, she still dared to throw sh*t at them. However, the emotionless detector was struck by an instinctive sense of horror in the face of this human face. This was a sense of horror that was omnipresent. It was as if even the most fundamental thing in the world was about to be destroyed. It referred to itself as the sky, so it had to be one of the six paramount heavenly gods, the heavenly heaven god. The sky here is not simply the sky as we understand it. It corresponded to the earth. It was the number one existence in the universe. The sky was the sky and the realm. The development of matter and living beings required space and realms. If there was no sky, there would be no prerequisite for all this development, and there would be no world. This was why the sky was so important. No one in this world could match its understanding of space and the world. It was exactly because of this that little Tina panicked when it asked if she could come to its home. Little Tina knew that the heavenly heaven god was serious. It really wanted to do this. Bam! Little Tina suddenly self-detonated, leaving no trace of herself in this world. It was not the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army or the Heavenly Heaven God. It was Tina in the Divine Mirror World who had ordered her to self-detonate. In the Divine Mirror World, Tina's face was deathly pale, and cold sweat was pouring down her face. What's wrong, little Na? And Lin was given a fright upon seeing this. Tina's heart was still pounding with fear. The Heavenly Heaven God is here. Her words fell upon hearing this. Everyone's expression shifted upon hearing this. Heavenly Heaven God? That's one of the six paramount heavenly gods? Dongfang Zhuangshi murmured with shock and horror in his eyes. Never would he have thought that returning to the Kingdom of the Nine States with Lin would draw the attention of one of the most terrifying beings in this world. He was just a bystander. Why did he have to bear such a heavy burden? So that means Xiao Fu's deduction of karma really is possible. And Lin was astonished. Xiao Fu had once said that an extremely powerful heavenly god was going to forcibly break through the barrier of Tina's divine mirror world. Now that the heavenly heaven god was here, it was the most powerful being in the world, as well as the most suitable being to forcibly break through the passageway between the two worlds. Xiao Fu's words were exactly what she had said. Sinister spirit be cesspool. His white-haired head covered the sun. A pair of eyes more dazzling than the sun stared at a certain spot in the void. There really is a world here, and the world follows the spirit. Interesting, a dignified voice echoed in the sky. This world is not simple. It has great potential. All of the heavenly gods' expressions changed slightly upon hearing such an evaluation from the heavenly heaven god. The heavenly illusion god took a slow step forward. Then do you have a way to open up a passageway between the two worlds and drag them out? I only used a projection. I don't have enough power to pull them out. However, if he were to expend all of his energy to forcefully open up a passageway between the two worlds, he would still be able to do so. As for what happens next, it's all up to you. The heavenly heaven god spoke with a forlorn expression. A hint of displeasure appeared on Wu Ming's face. If you really want to help, come with your real body. What's with that regretful look? He must be very happy. The heavenly heaven god clearly didn't want to do its best to help. All it wanted was to give them a chance to battle against Lin and the others, then watch as the two sides fought. To the heavenly heaven god, not only were the human race its enemies, but all of the heavenly gods who stood in its way were also its enemies. Even though they didn't say it outright, that was the truth. Thank you, heavenly heaven god. The heavenly illusion god said in a polite voice. Even though they knew this was going to be the case, they still didn't want to give up on this rare opportunity. The heavenly heaven god's eyes began to dim, but its aura soared explosively to the point where it was powerful enough to crush the heavens. At the same time, all of the worlds in the universe flashed through its eyes. All worlds are in my eyes. All heavens are in my hands. Make way for me. Boom! A streak of dim gray light condensed to the extreme before shooting into a certain spot in the void. Rumble crack. Space was punctured. Spatial power swept forth in a frenzy. An extremely chaotic gate of light began to appear. My power has been completely expended. The passageway I forcibly opened can only last for an hour. I wish you all the best of luck. The heavenly heaven god's head dimmed before disappearing into thin air. Hee, an hour is more than enough. The heavenly soul god chuckled coldly. Let's go. The heavenly illusion god flew toward the massive gate of light between the two worlds atop its massive divine dragon. Within the divine mirror world, Tina's expression shifted drastically. It's over. The heavenly heaven god has broken through the barrier of the divine mirror world, and the passageway between the two worlds has been forcibly reconnected. Can you destroy the passageway now? And Lin asked in a panicked voice. I can't. This is a massive passageway created by the heavenly heaven god's projection. If I want to destroy the passageway, it'll take me at least 5 minutes. Tina shook her head. 5 minutes? For some reason, and Lin's panic gradually subsided. Is this the projection of the heavenly heaven god? Does that mean it can't fight anymore? The heavenly gods are coming. Let's get out of here, Dongfang Zhuangshi urged. Everyone prepared to set off upon hearing this. Xiaofu was right. The passageway had already been opened, and the heavenly gods were about to descend upon them. They had to get out of here. Otherwise, they would be at an absolute disadvantage. Wait, and Lin suddenly said. What is it? Dongfang Zhuangshi's footsteps faltered with a perplexed expression. I have a bold idea. Let's stay here and fight them. And Lin's eyes lit up, and he pulled out his starless sky of slaughter formation disc and karma star protection divine disc. The formations on the two discs had to be set up in advance. Once activated, they could draw upon the power of the stars to kill or protect their masters. Are you insane? Dongfang Zhuangshi was given a fright. What's going on? Su Xiaolan didn't reject Lin's decision. Instead, she asked a patient question. At this moment, the sky above the immortal realm was violently torn apart by a burst of power. The spatial passageway between the two worlds appeared, and the space tremored. An extremely terrifying aura surged forth like a tsunami. The heavenly gods were hurtling toward them through the spatial passageway. I don't have time to explain. If you trust me, then let's fight together. My plan should work. And Lin quickly set up the formation discs beneath the passageway before unleashing the power of the two discs with all his might. Su Xiaolan gritted her teeth and ran toward Lin with determination. She chose to trust him unconditionally. Boom! Su Xiaolan also injected her power into the formation. In the sky above, the power of the stars surged before falling upon the formation. And Lin, Su Xiaolan, Dongfang Zhuangshi hesitated for a few seconds before finally choosing to stand with Lin and also injecting his power into the formation. Tina wore a grave expression. They're here. Chapter 1653. The power of the Karma Star Protection Divine Disc was completely unleashed. The 7 stars of the Big Dipper transformed into 7 extremely dazzling stars that hovered above the formation. A delicate little girl appeared at the center of the formation. She was the artifact spirit, Xiaofu, as well as the formation spirit of the Karma Star Protection Divine Disc. Xiaofu stared at Lin with a hint of surprise on her face. Her original plan was for Lin to escape from the divine mirror world and battle the heavenly gods until reinforcements arrived. That way, they would be able to survive. But now, Lin was voluntarily fighting the heavenly gods in the divine mirror world. How were they supposed to fight the heavenly gods when the enemy was more powerful than they were? Xiaofu was both enraged and anxious, but she didn't have time to continue divining. She had to focus all of her attention on fighting the heavenly gods, upon which she discovered something that made her even angrier. "And Lin, why did you let that be asterisk start out?" Xiao Fu pointed at a chubby baby with an enraged expression. The chubby baby's body was as pristine white as jade, and his facial features were extremely intricate, but he was glaring at Xiao Fu with a ferocious expression, as if he wanted to tear Xiao Fu to shreds. If it weren't for the fact that Enlin was the owner of the spell formation, and that he had to fight the enemy with all his might, he really would have pounced over to fight the heavenly gods. "I don't care what kind of feud you have with each other, but please set aside your past and fight the enemy together. Otherwise, you'll end up like this mirror." Enlin pulled out the vermilion bird mirror from his storage ring. Gasp! Xiao Fu and the chubby baby both drew a sharp intake of breath at the sight of the cracked vermilion bird mirror. They could sense that this vermilion bird mirror was most likely a being of the same cultivation base as them, but it had still been destroyed by Enlin. This was the result of disobeying Enlin? What a terrifying and cruel master. Xiao Fu and the chubby baby immediately became a lot more obedient after seeing Enlin's pitiful expression, and they both activated the spell formation with all their might in fear that Enlin would smash the mirror. The vermilion bird mirror gritted its teeth. "Idiot N, I'm already in this state, yet you're still trying to squeeze my remaining value out of me and threaten the other artifact spirits with my tattered body? Do you even have a fucking conscience? Making the best use of everything. Don't be angry, don't be angry." And Lin offered some words of consolation before putting the vermilion bird mirror away. As for a cracked mirror, he would have to ask Ziwei to fix it next time. At this time, a huge figure began to appear in the spatial passageway in the sky. Roar! The roar of a divine dragon shook the 9 heavens. And Lin's heart jolted. This was the aura of a Dao integration stage divine dragon of the West. Then, an even more terrifying aura began to descend. "And Lin, your end has come." Wu Ming stood on the dragon's head in an awe-inspiring manner. The jade-green sword in her hand was filled with sword chi, and her killing intent was like a raging gale. "I'll return what the little fairy did to us 1,000-fold," Long Kuei said in a solemn voice. When Enlin heard these opening remarks, he couldn't help but feel his chest tighten. Why do you have to take the blame for Tina's poop? If you have the guts, go look for Tina. But he didn't say this out loud. A real man should be able to stand up to heaven and earth and take the blame properly. Karma Star Protection Formation, activate. Enlin roared. The formation imbued with his Su Xiaolans, Dongfang Zhuangshis, and Gluttony's powers suddenly erupted. Blue vein patterns spread across the ground, and dazzling starlight from the Big Dipper appeared in the sky. At the same time, an oval ball of air began to materialize before enshrouding everyone. "Oh, this formation, is this what you're relying on to face us?" The heavenly illusion god looked down at the formation on the ground with a smile. "This is indeed a very good formation. If your enemies were mythological beasts and great generals, you wouldn't be able to do anything no matter how many of you there were. However, it's a pity that you've encountered us." It gripped its hand, and a power that resembled clouds and mist surged for over 500 kilometers before quickly converging to form a colorful divine saber. It was as transparent as jade and reflected all things, yet also contained all things within it. There were illusions on the blade of the saber, scenes of bustling streets, mortals dying of old age, immortals flying through the sky, and primordial beasts roaring into the sky. This was a world, and Lin opened his eyes, and he felt as if he could sense the might of an entire world from within the saber. Experience despair, illusionary world saber. The heavenly illusion god slashed its saber toward Lin. The colorful divine saber plunged down from the sky, taking away all the colors of heaven and earth. The saber descended with earth-shattering might, and Lin's body trembled. Did this look like the power of a heavenly god being restricted? What happened to suppressing a portion of his power? Why was his power so terrifying? Boom! The illusionary world saber clashed with the Karma Star Protection Formation, and boundless light erupted forth. Xiao Fu stood at the center of the formation with one hand raised up toward the sky, wielding the world's saber with an expression of unyielding determination on her face. This formation is quite powerful. The heavenly illusion, God, won't be able to break through it in an instant. Let's add some more firepower. The heavenly reality, God, chuckled as the black satellites around its body began to revolve at high speed. Enlin focused his gaze. At this moment, an inky black formation suddenly appeared. The vast star Atlas instantly enveloped the entire universe, covering the heavens above. What? All of the heavenly gods looked up in shock. They didn't think that there would be a spell formation hidden in the heavens. A vast galaxy of stars stretched across the vast sky, with no end in sight. One red star after another fell from the galaxy of stars, all of which were imbued with boundless killing intent. That murderous aura could even freeze the void and shatter the firmament. The starless sky of slaughter formation was fully activated. Not only was this formation imbued with the absolute power of the stars, but it was also imbued with Enlin and Su Xiaolan's heaven-crushing true intent. Even the protective barrier of a heavenly god would be shattered by this attack. The heavenly gods also sensed danger from the falling red stars, and they all unleashed their powers to defend themselves. The red stars fell at an extremely fast speed, and their power was unimaginable. They could even sense the essential power of chaos within the stars. The stars fell like rain, and every step they took was filled with killing intent. Boom, boom, boom. Energy clashed in the sky above, and gale-force winds swept through heaven and earth. Some of the Heaven Pioneers' stage great generals were blasted flying with blood gushing from their mouths. One of the red stars managed to escape, and it shattered the divine lizard dragon's sturdy armor before puncturing a gargantuan hole into its body. Ow! The divine lizard dragon howled with anguish, and its body plummeted from the sky, creating a gargantuan crater. Enlin was astonished. The starless sky of slaughter formation was even more powerful than he had imagined. In the process of obstructing the 5 heavenly gods, it had also severely wounded several Heaven Pioneer stage great generals and a Dao integration stage divine dragon. However, the starless sky of slaughter formation could only be maintained for a short period of time. It only lasted for a dozen or so seconds before its attacks became a lot weaker. It was most likely because the power of the stars was running low. An understanding expression appeared on Enlin's face as he looked at the panting chubby baby. The chubby baby was still a child, so he naturally couldn't ask for too much. The starless sky of slaughter formation's attack concluded, and the 5 heavenly gods were standing in the air in a slightly disheveled manner, but they were completely unscathed. They took a deep breath before pouncing toward Enlin with even more fury. Chapter 1654. Xiao Fu faced the 5 oncoming heavenly gods, and her slender hands danced through the air as she unleashed the Big Dipper. Wu Ming held the dark green, long sword in her hand. The sword chi was like a rainbow as she slashed down with her sword. The sword light surged for hundreds of miles. Xiao Fu waved a hand through the air, and the Dubby star transformed into a scorching sun that soared into the sky before clashing with the sword projection. Scorching energy erupted forth, threatening to melt Wu Ming as well. Long Kuei fell from the sky with his fists clenched, and the space around him was already trembling violently. Merak! Xiao Fu tossed the blue star on her left toward Long Kuei. The Merak star flew toward Long Kuei. At this moment, Long Kuei's fist had already fallen, and the space around him twisted and warped as a devastating fist projection swept forth for over 150 kilometers. The Merak star suddenly cracked open before transforming into a massive blue gate of light. A boundless frosty aura froze the space around it, and Long Kuei's fist became more and more sluggish as it was weakened by the power of extreme frost. On the other side, a black satellite fell from the heavenly reality god's body. In that instant, the mundane-looking black satellite stole all of the colors from heaven and earth. It was as if it were the only thing that existed. Fekta! Xiao Fu extended a delicate foot and kicked a white planet before her. The white star hurtled toward the black satellite, upon which a divine light erupted. An indomitable, immortal phantom appeared in the sky. He pointed at the sky with one finger and pointed at the falling black satellite with the other. Boom! Energy exploded, and heaven and earth tremored violently. The immortal silhouette actually blocked the black satellite's path. Right at this moment, heaven and earth suddenly dimmed. Only a peculiar world was surging. The heavenly illusion god's world saber had already fallen again. Migrez Aliathgo. Little blessing Lotus lightly lifted his feet and kicked the two stars in front of him, sending them high into the sky. The Migrez star erupted with extremely powerful dark underworld star power, threatening to engulf all things as it tried to engulf the entire world within the world saber. The Aliath star was imbued with the power to break through all things, and it crashed into the world saber, causing the unstoppable saber strike to falter. The heavenly soul god hovered in the sky. With it, as the center, the grayish-brown soul power quickly spread out in all directions. Any space that was enveloped by it became a colorless world, a world that was dominated by it, the soul world. It was confident that if it dragged Lin and the others into the soul world, they would definitely die. Xiao Fu waved a hand. Mizar Alke. The Mizar star erupted with endless radiance that was even more dazzling than the sun. It illuminated the world and pierced through the void. This was the ultimate power of light. The power of light was the nemesis of soul power. It clashed with the soul realm unleashed by the heavenly soul god, thereby preventing the soul realm from expanding. The Alcade star rose into the sky, and its benevolent light lit up the entire heaven and earth, but it also tore apart the heavenly soul god's soul realm. That's right, the Alcade star had another name, the heavenly gate star's Soul Ming, army destroyer. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Fu had used the 7 stars of the Big Dipper to block the attacks from the 5 heavenly gods. Furthermore, the characteristics of each star were utilized to the extreme by her. The stars were the bane of all attacks, and she was able to maximize the effects of karma with the least amount of effort. Even her master, Lin, was dumbstruck by Xiao Fu's defensive ability. Dongfang Zhuangshi was both envious and jealous. As expected of a divine tool at the pinnacle of karma, its defenses are simply too astonishing. The middle-aged man spoke with excitement as he injected energy into the spell formation. To think that it was able to block the combined attacks of 5 heavenly gods. This thing sure is extraordinary. And Lin also exclaimed in amazement. The 3 of them were doing their best to maintain the Karma Star Protection Formation. However, without this formation, the 3 of them wouldn't even be able to withstand the combined attacks of 2 or 3 heavenly gods, let alone 5 heavenly gods. Expressions of humiliation appeared on the 5 heavenly gods' faces at the sight of their combined attacks being thwarted by a formation. Breakthrough. Wu Ming let loose a clear cry as boundless light erupted from her longsword. An extremely sharp sword projection whistled through the air, slicing the scorching sun before her in half. Bam, bam, bam. Earth-shaking explosions rang out one after another. The blue gate of light caved in and cracked open from Long Kuei's attack. Of all things in this world, only I am real. The heavenly reality god's round body suddenly expanded. The black satellite it had tossed downward also began to expand. Moreover, it was imbued with a paramount power of laws that could destroy all external objects. Dead fake thing, don't embarrass yourself here. The heavenly reality god harumphed coldly, and the mighty immortal materialized by the Fekta star began to crumble as its power receded like the receding tide. Treat dreams as horses, treat illusions as reality. The mist-like divine halo above the heavenly illusion god's head gradually became clearer, as if there was a real world contained within it. The illusionary world saber materialized once again, and the power of a realm surged explosively as it sliced through the Migres and Alioth stars with an extremely violent force. So what if their attributes countered each other? As long as they were powerful enough, they could break through everything. The boundless soul power of the soul realm also began to advance relentlessly. The two great stars, Mizar and Alkaid, were roused in one go, then weakened in the second, and finally exhausted in the third. Their power was like a fleeting splendor that was quickly engulfed by the power of the soul world. The Big Dipper stars were destroyed at the same time. The backlash from the formation made Xiao Fu's body tremble slightly, and her aura became extremely feeble. "I'm sorry, Master. I might not be able to hold on." She was unable to even maintain her formation spirit body as she spoke, and she immediately dissipated. "Xiao Fu!" and Lin yelled. There was no response from the formation. 5 minutes. There are only 3 minutes left. I just need to hold on for another 3 minutes. And Lin gritted his teeth and clenched his fists with an expression of indignation on his face. 5 minutes? Hold on for another 3 minutes? Su Xiaolan's eyes lit up with excitement upon hearing this. And even though Lin hadn't voiced his bold idea, her eyes still lit up with excitement. That's right, this was definitely a very good opportunity to turn the tables. They just needed to hold on for another 3 minutes. However, at this moment, the 5 heavenly gods had already pounced toward them, and there were also 3 mythological beasts and 7 great generals behind them. Xiao Fu had disappeared, and the Karma Star Protection Formation's power had been halved. How were they supposed to fight against this group of powerful enemies? Everyone was in a panic. Lin focused his gaze, and countless red stars began to fall from the river of stars in the sky again. The starless sky of Slaughter Formation unleashed its boundless power again. The heavenly gods had no choice but to use their powers to defend themselves. Even they were unable to disregard this power. Right at this moment, Lin had already grabbed onto Su Xiaolan's hand. Run! The formation's power had already been depleted, so they couldn't use it against their enemies. Everyone immediately began to flee into the distance. The dense killing intent of the Red Star was crushed, and the heavenly deities chased after it. There were still 2.5 minutes left. Chapter 1655. He. Run? What do you think you can run to? Wu Ming's sword intent surged, and her body flashed through the air at an incredible speed. I'm very slow. I'll catch up to you in less than 10 seconds. The heavenly reality god quickly closed in on Lin and the others. Its speed was twice that of heavenly goddess Wu Ming's. The heavenly gods have caught up to us. What do we do? How about we get out of here? Dongfang Zhuangshi was panicking, and Lin had been severely injured here, and his thigh had been sliced off. There was no way he could fight this battle. Gluttony was only at the return to Void Pinnacle stage, so it was the slowest among the heavenly gods. It wailed in despair, thinking that this was the end of its pitiful life. Then, a few terrifying auras swept past its body, not even bothering to pay attention to it. That's right, it was ignored. The heavenly gods didn't want to waste their precious time on an insignificant immortal beast. Gluttony silently stopped in its tracks as it watched the heavenly gods and the heavenly human tribe united army getting further and further away. A mix of sorrow and joy welled up in its heart. Tao Tai, because of its weakness and insignificance, successfully escaped the disaster. And Lin almost spat out a mouthful of blood upon seeing this. Xiao Fu really wasn't lying when she said that he had the highest chance of dying. The heavenly gods were hammering him in a frenzy. It was clear that they wanted to skin him alive and pull out his tendons. And Lin, how about we split up? Dongfang Zhuangshi suggested with a serious expression. And Lin, splitting up now was no different from abandoning him. Brother Dongfang Zhuangshi, and Lin said with a bitter expression. Don't say anything, brother Lin. We're brothers. If you die here, I'll still join the 4-9 Immortal sect and continue your sect's glory. Dongfang Zhuangshi was ready to throw caution to the wind, and Lin wanted to curse out loud. Was this something brothers would do? Just as they were speaking, The heavenly reality God had already reached the forefront. Don't miss this opportunity. You're about to see the most beautiful thing in the world. The heavenly reality God's voice sounded from behind them. The most beautiful thing? What idiot. The prettiest is Xiaolan. She's right beside me. And Lin couldn't care less about it and fled into the distance. At this moment, the divine halo above the heavenly reality God's head suddenly lit up. It was impossible to describe what kind of radiance it was. It caused all living things to lose their color and all living things to become intoxicated. And Lin, Su Xiaolan, and Dongfang Zhuangshi all turned to look at the divine halo. It was very beautiful, incomparably beautiful, so beautiful that it was very real. Because of that divine ring, the world had become real and profound. Because he had personally seen that divine ring, his entire life had become meaningful. And Lin smiled with a yearning look in his eyes. It's so beautiful. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I really want to look at it forever. The heavenly reality God flew over. That's right. Just look at it and admire it. The world has become real because of it. It is the one and only. It is the source. The black satellites around its body rotated even faster, and their might became unimaginably terrifying. Each one of them could easily pierce through the body of a Tao integration stage super mighty figure. However, Lin, Su Xiaolan, and Dongfang Zhuangshi were completely oblivious to this. They were still obsessed with the divine halo above the heavenly reality God's head. Ha ha! Die. If you die, you'll be able to freeze this most beautiful moment forever. The black satellites around the heavenly reality God's body tore through the void and whistled through the air. It was also at this moment a woman who exuded perfection from head to toe began to appear. Her green dress danced, her emerald eyes shone, and her body rippled with divine light. This was an existence that was flawless. Her appearance caused all living things to pale in comparison. At the same time, all living beings in this world wanted to kneel at her feet. The supreme goddess of the divine mirror world, Tina, the heavenly reality God's divine halo, could indeed steal the limelight from everything in this world. However, this was the divine mirror world, a place where Tina ruled. No matter how powerful the heavenly reality God was, it was no match for the heavens. Tina's appearance caused a hint of clarity to return to Lin and the others' eyes. Lin was not the slightest bit happy at the sight of the woman before him. Instead, he said in a panic, "Little Na, hurry up and leave. Don't attack." His voice had only just fallen when a burst of light enshrouded Lin, Su Xiaolan, and Dongfang Zhuangshi. In the next instant, the space around them began to warp. The heavenly reality God's attacks all missed. All of the heavenly gods were stupefied as they stared at the empty space around them. In the northernmost region of the divine mirror world, an extremely frosty energy swept through the surroundings. Snow and ice swirled violently, and frosty winds howled through the air like sharp blades. And Lin, Su Xiaolan, and Dongfang Zhuangshi stood on the ground and stared at the boundless expanse of ice and snow before them. Their heads didn't even move for a moment. This continued until an extremely beautiful fairy appeared before their eyes. And Lin finally came to his senses, and he immediately grabbed the fairy's soft, delicate hand. "Little Na, are you all right? How are you now?" Tina was the only one who could instantly teleport everyone to a different location. "I'm fine." Tina shook her head with a faint smile. Didn't Xiaofu say they were going to face the heavenly gods head-on? Confronting a heavenly god head-on was an act of insubordination, and it would result in an extremely terrifying backlash. Since that's the case, why don't I just avoid facing the heavenly gods head-on? I won't even have to come into contact with the heavenly gods. I'll just use my power of the heavens to teleport all of you. That won't count as fighting the heavenly gods. Everyone was instantly enlightened upon hearing this. That's right. You're not going to fight the heavenly gods. You're just teleporting the living beings in this world. There's nothing wrong with that. and it won't result in a backlash from the Tai Chu continent's heavenly Tao. Dongfang Zhuangshi was extremely excited. I really lost my mind at that time. If I look at it from a different perspective, we actually have a lot of ways to deal with this situation. And Lin also heaved a sigh of relief, and a smile appeared on his face. Little Na, you did a great job. Tina smiled sheepishly. However, don't get careless, Jin and Lin. When the heavenly gods descended, they appeared where we were. It's very likely that they have the ability to locate us. I still have you. And Lin smiled and said, they're coming. If you continue to teleport us, they'll never be able to catch up to us. Isn't it better if we just leave? Dongfang Zhuangshi was extremely excited. And Lin, leave? Su Xiaolan wore a disdainful expression. Why do we have to leave? This? Dongfang Zhuangshi didn't understand why the two of them were looking at him like this. They're heading toward us right now, and they'll probably be here in 2 minutes. I can completely destroy the passageway between the two worlds in a minute and a half. The fairy's words finally made Dongfang Zhuangshi realize something. Could it be that this is why you chose to stay here and fight? Dongfang Zhuangshi looked at Lin and drew a sharp intake of breath. There was a hint of excitement in his eyes. That's right. And Lin looked toward the south, and a smile appeared on his face. 5 heavenly gods came to the divine mirror world to kill me. Sorry, but since you're already here, don't even think about going back. Chapter 1656. The heavenly reality god's body continued to rotate, and a map appeared on its round, white body. There were mountains, rivers, oceans, and plains. This was a map of a world, and it was a map of the divine mirror continent. Lin and the others are not moving. He. Is the god of creation out of energy? The heavenly reality god's eyes burned with rage as it chuckled coldly. This was the 3rd time that Lin had slipped away from right under their noses. To the 5 heavenly gods, this was an unprecedented humiliation. Immediately envelop Lin and the others with the power of the heavenly gods to prevent that fairy from teleporting them away again. If that fairy uses the power of the divine mirror world to forcibly break through our power of the heavenly gods, she will die for sure, the heavenly illusion god said in an ethereal voice. All the heavenly gods nodded. They had miscalculated time and time again, and they had been slapped in the face again and again. This time, they had to seize this opportunity to kill Lin and avenge themselves. The heavenly gods rushed toward Lin as quickly as they could. The countless black balls around the heavenly reality god's body had already filled the entire sky of the divine mirror continent. They were like satellites that monitored the movements of all living beings in this world. Every single movement of Lin and the others was captured by it. That's right, it was the most powerful surveillance satellite. The reason why Lin and the others were hunted down so quickly in the sinister spirit bee cesspool was also because of this ability of the heavenly reality god. Soon, a boundless expanse of snow and ice appeared before their eyes. 5,000 kilometers, the heavenly reality god said. Heavenly goddess Wu Ming's eyes turned sharp. This time, I'm going to tear Lin to shreds. The heavenly soul god's gray robe flapped in the wind. I'm going to drag Lin into the soul realm and shoot him 1,000,000 times. All the heavenly gods charged toward Lin with boundless rage in their eyes. Lin seemed to have seen the heavenly gods from afar, but he also seemed to have guessed that they were coming. A vibrant smile appeared on his face as he looked in the direction that the heavenly soul god was flying toward. It's time. Farewell, heavenly gods. A vast white light enshrouded Lin, Su Xiaolan, and Dongfang Zhuangshi. Then they began to disappear. The heavenly gods who witnessed all of this were in an uproar again. Damn it, he escaped again. It seems like there's no time interval between the teleportation of the elves, or rather, the time interval is very short. This is going to be difficult. Perhaps they're just toying with us, waiting for us to rush over before teleporting away. Damn it. Is the God of creation of this world really not afraid of incurring the wrath of heaven? The heavenly Tao's subconsciousness didn't react. This is indeed not considered insubordination. I'm so angry. The Empyrean god stood on the icy plain, furious and helpless. How many times had they lost an enemy? Heavenly reality god, where's Enlin right now? Heavenly goddess Wu Ming gripped her green longsword tightly with an indignant expression. The heavenly reality god was in a daze as it shared the feedback from the countless satellites in the sky. I suddenly thought of a way to catch them. Where are they now? Soul power surged within the heavenly soul god's body as its eyes lit up. It was already thirsting for power. I can't find them in the divine mirror world. The heavenly reality god murmured. Wu Ming, heavenly soul god. Heavenly god Long Kui, what? What's going on? I've already drawn my saber, but I can't find them? Could it be? An expression of incredulity appeared on the heavenly illusion god's face. I think so. They've already left. The heavenly reality god nodded. Another bout of silence ensued. Even if the heavenly deities had great willpower, they almost couldn't hold it in anymore, wishing to curse out loud. Let's follow them. We can't let them get away. Heavenly god Long Kui roared with rage. All of the heavenly gods hurried to the passageway between the two worlds. Killing intent surged from their bodies, and their rage could almost incinerate the entire heaven and earth. However, when they arrived at the immortal realm, they were dumbstruck again. There was an indistinct crack in the sky, which seemed to be telling them that this was once a passageway. As for the passageway between the two worlds, it had already collapsed a long time ago. Silence. A peculiar silence ensued. What's going on? Didn't the heavenly heaven god say that this passageway could last for an hour? Why is it gone after 5 or 6 minutes? The heavenly soul god's expression was terrifyingly dark. Perhaps it lied, or perhaps it meant that it could last for an hour if no one interfered with it. If a god of creation intentionally sabotaged the passageway, it might not even last 10 minutes. The heavenly reality god gritted its teeth, and the flames of rage burning in its eyes seemed to be able to incinerate all things. What the heavenly heaven god meant by that was no longer important. What was important was that they had been screwed over. Not only had they been screwed over by Enlin, but they had also been screwed over by the heavenly heaven god. The heavenly heaven god had given them inaccurate information, and Enlin had taken advantage of this to trap them in this divine mirror world. Boom, boom, boom. The 5 heavenly gods' rage soared into the heavens, threatening to collapse the entire heaven and earth. Enlin, heavenly god, if we can get out of here, we must demand an explanation. Kill, kill, kill. We have to kill all of them. The heavenly gods, who had accumulated countless negative emotions, finally exploded at this moment as they unleashed all of their rage. Their boundless rage caused the earth within a radius of several thousand kilometers to crack open, and even the heavens to crumble. In contrast to the insanity of the divine mirror world within the sinister spirit beast cesspool, Enlin, Dongfang Zhuangshi, Su Xiaolan, and Tina looked at one another, and they could even see the expressions of relief on each other's faces. Soon, all of them burst into raucous laughter. Ha ha ha! I'm sure the expressions on the heavenly gods' faces will be spectacular. Dongfang Zhuangshi clapped his hands and praised. It's not just spectacular. They're about to explode on the spot. Tina giggled. Su Xiaolan latched onto Enlin's arm with a smile on her face. Who would have thought that you would be able to come up with such a brilliant solution in such a dire situation? She was not trying to flatter Enlin. If any of them had been in Enlin's shoes, they would most likely have obediently listened to Xiao Fu's arrangements and chosen to fight in the sinister spirit beast cesspool. However, Enlin was able to come up with such a brilliant solution. Just his mental fortitude and adaptability were far superior to that of a normal powerful being. Enlin was very pleased with the compliment, and he replied in a modest manner. It's all thanks to you, Xiaolan, who chose to trust me unconditionally even under those circumstances. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to accomplish this. A faint blush appeared on Su Xiaolan's face as she stared at Enlin. Stop! Stop! Dongfang Zhuangshi immediately intervened upon seeing this. But the heavenly gods sure are open-minded. They knew that I could shatter the passageway between the two worlds at any moment, but they still chased after you. Tina sighed with a perplexed expression. Even Lin and the others found this to be quite miraculous. This plan was going too smoothly, as if the heavens were helping them. Chapter 1657. Hina said, "Let's leave this place first." The heavenly heaven god was able to find the divine mirror world and forcefully open the passageway between the two worlds because it knows the coordinates I left behind on the Tai Chu continent before entering the divine mirror world. If I leave this place, the coordinates will also move. The place I am at is the original coordinates for entering the divine mirror world. As long as I don't expose the coordinates, it won't be able to do anything to me. And Lin felt like Tina's words made sense and was about to leave this place. Right at this moment, a young man in a white robe suddenly appeared in the distance. He appeared to be moving slowly, but he was actually extremely fast. He covered several hundred kilometers with each step, and he was holding a silver crescent moon in his hand. He didn't know what it was, but it was definitely something bad *SS. The young man faltered slightly upon seeing Lin and the others. Where are the enemies? Also, why are you all smiling so happily? The young man stared blankly at Lin and the others, wondering if he had come to the wrong place. Wasn't he supposed to be surrounded by 5 heavenly gods? Didn't they say that his life was in danger and that if he came a second later, he would only be able to collect his corpse? Why were Lin and the others laughing and chatting with one another? Where were the 5 heavenly gods? Chun. And Lin waved his hand with excitement on his face. "You're here. You're the first one to come. I told you that our relationship was the strongest." Chun had nothing to say. He felt like he had been screwed over by a Grandmaster construction cultivator. Who would have thought? And Lin, your relationship with Chun really is so strong. Dongfang Zhuangshi was astonished and envious. Chun made his way toward Lin with a speechless expression. What happened? Where are the enemies? And Lin began to explain the situation to him. Like this. An expression of astonishment appeared on Chun's face. You can do that? He was truly shocked by Lin's actions. Using a world created by a god of creation to trap the heavenly gods? Only Lin could think of something like this, and only Lin would dare to do something like this. But the heavenly gods' reactions are a little stupid, Chun murmured. And Lin paused for a moment before replying. According to my analysis, they might have lost their rationality from Tina's *T, which is why they became stupid. Chun's lips twitched. Who would believe such an explanation? If the heavenly gods in the divine mirror world heard their conversation, they would most likely explode in rage. They had clearly been screwed over by the heavenly heaven god, but they were being labeled as stupid. Who could accept this? Right at this moment, wind and clouds suddenly surged in the heavens. A scholarly-looking man in an imperial robe rushed over in a hurry. The celestial god. The celestial arch was also holding a strange object in his hand, but it was unknown what it was used for. Almost at the same time, the eastern sky became dark and gloomy. God, Lily God, Dragon Spirit Mountain, Chun Mountain World, King suddenly, and 2 God, Li God Wang Continent, and Si and Ming God Dynasty Continent. Chun Heaven and King Chun. And Lin, are you all right? The celestial arch looked at Lin in the distance before turning to Chun, upon which his expression shifted slightly. Where are the enemies? Have they all been chased away? Chun was here, but the heavenly gods were nowhere to be seen, so he could only speculate. Are you all right, and Lin? Patriarch Zhu Yin asked with a smile. And Lin was a little surprised that Patriarch Zhu Yin had come. And Lin knew that Patriarch Zhu Yin was planning on staying out of this war. He was only trying to get the Grandmaster Construction Cultivator to contact Patriarch Zhu Yin, but he didn't think that Patriarch Zhu Yin would actually come for him. And Lin recounted the events that had just transpired to the 2 cultivators who had just arrived. Sure enough, both the Celestial Arch and Patriarch Zhu Yin were astonished upon hearing this. You can do that? The Celestial Arch took a deep breath. Who would have thought that you would have a world that can move along with you? That's incredible. Furthermore, even a heavenly god has been trapped in your world, which means that your world is quite extraordinary. Do you feel anything strange right now? Patriarch Zhu-yin asked as he looked at the little fairy with a warm expression. Tina shook her head. I don't, but I'm really scared that the heavenly gods will wreak havoc in my world. They're like a ticking time bomb. You don't have to worry about that. If you kill the heavenly gods, you'll suffer a backlash. If the heavenly gods wreak havoc and massacre living beings in your world, they'll also suffer a backlash from the heavenly Tao. They won't do that, Patriarch Zhu-yin said. He was then greeted by the sight of everyone looking at him with peculiar expressions. Why are you all looking at me like that? He asked with a perplexed expression. Who was the one who told you that even if the heavenly gods entered your world, you would be able to kill them on the spot? Lin asked expressionlessly. If it weren't for Xiao Fu's reminder, I would most likely have already been killed by the backlash from the heavenly Tao. Tina was also expressionless. Su Xiaolan suggested, how about we put a heavenly god into Ding Xiaoru's world and have him show us how to kill a heavenly god? Cold sweat poured down Patriarch Zhu-yin's face. Let me explain. I really didn't know that you had created a world, and I certainly didn't think that a heavenly god would appear in your world. Everyone was silent as they stared at him. Even the Celestial Arch and Chun were looking at the purple-robed man with disdain. Patriarch Zhu-yin finally gave up on trying to explain himself. All right, I'm sorry, Tina. It's all my fault. I only wanted to flex at the time. The paramount god of the Ghost Tribe, the leader of the opposite shore realm, was apologizing like a little child. No one would believe him even if he told them about this, but he really did. Everyone's expressions finally eased upon seeing Patriarch Zhu-yin's sincere apology. Brother, you should have apologized earlier. And Lin laid a hand on Patriarch Zhu-yin's shoulder with a wide grin. We're such good brothers. If you apologize, we'll definitely forgive you. I forgive you. Tina also nodded. She had almost been screwed over by Patriarch Zhu-yin, but thankfully that didn't happen, and he had apologized with sincerity, so she naturally wasn't going to hold it against him. Of course, this also had to do with the fact that Patriarch Zhu-yin was willing to risk offending a heavenly god in exchange for saving them, and everyone was quite fond of him. Everyone began to depart from the sinister spirit beast cesspool. Patriarch Zhu-yin returned to the opposite shore realm upon seeing that Enlin was fine. He wasn't ready to face off against a heavenly god with Enlin. Chun and the Celestial Arch all felt a sense of security after returning to the Kingdom of the Nine States. All of them turned their attention to Tina. How are we going to deal with the heavenly gods now? Enlin asked with a smile, but a cold light flashed through his eyes. Chapter 1658. The Kami was like a lion in a cage. Even though they couldn't get out, they were still extremely ferocious. The Celestial Thearch's brows furrowed slightly. 7 Heaven Pioneers stage, Heavenly Humans. 3 Tao Integration stage, Mythological Beasts. 2 Divine Heaven stage, Heavenly Humans, and 3 Heavenly Gods. This is more than enough to crush an entire realm. They really do think very highly of you, Enlin. He knew that all of this was targeted at Enlin. Enlin felt like his head was about to explode. Celestial Arch, please don't say that. Do you think I want to be held in such high regard by them? I just want to be an ordinary immortal cultivator. The Celestial Arch chuckled. You're an ordinary cultivator, but you're even more extraordinary than the master of the Celestial Court, the Celestial Court. Save that for your next life. Su Xiaolan harumphed coldly. Enlin doesn't have a next life. He's not going to die in this one. As expected of the protector of the heavenly gods. Enlin was very touched by this. All right, let's talk about how we're going to deal with these heavenly gods. Dongfang Zhuangshi was about to change the topic again. In comparison to dealing with the heavenly gods, I'm more inclined to take advantage of this opportunity. A rare hint of battle intent appeared in Chun Shen's eyes. Enlin instantly knew what Shan was trying to do. You want to take advantage of this opportunity to destroy the Northern Heavenly Gate? Everyone was shocked to hear this. Only a lunatic would think like that. Last time, he had almost died when he destroyed the Southern Heavenly Gate, And he wanted to destroy another gate now? That's right. Chen nodded and said, on the surface, the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army hasn't been reduced. I'm guessing that these heavenly gods came from the Northern Heavenly Gate. They've already been trapped in Tina's world, so why don't we take advantage of this opportunity to destroy their gate? Chen pointed out the most important point. Everyone swallowed involuntarily as a scorching light appeared in their eyes. This was a very bold idea. However, no one refuted it, because this was indeed a rare opportunity. These idiots had abandoned their homes just to kill Enlin. In the end, not only had they failed to kill Enlin, but they had also been trapped in the divine mirror world. This was the perfect opportunity for them to steal someone else's home. The heavenly gods in Tina's world pose a very big threat. We have to take care of them as soon as possible, the Celestial Arch said. Tina, don't participate in the battle for now. Hide in the 4-9 Immortal Sex small Phoenix world. The heavenly heaven god won't be able to find you, so it won't be able to forcefully open up the passageway between the two worlds, and Lin instructed. Tina nodded. Take care of yourself, Giant and Lin. The sprite flew away. And Lin, the Celestial Arch, Su Xiaolan, Chun, and Dongfang Zhuangshi stood in the air. He was nervous and excited. So, should we turn around and go back now? Su Xiaolan suggested. The Sinister Spirit Beast Cesspool has the Heavenly Eye Detection System. Let's go around the Sinister Spirit Beast Cesspool and go to the Northern Heavenly Gate from the North Song Mountain Realm. That way, we'll be able to catch them off guard, Chun suggested. Everyone agreed and set off toward the North Song Mountain Realm. Kingdom of the Nine States, Wind Plain State. The Heavenly Human Tribe United Army was divided into 9 strongholds in different locations, creating a massive spell formation that allowed them to communicate with one another. A heavenly human tribe, great general with flowing white hair, a pair of golden eyes, and a vast and ethereal aura stood proudly at the forefront of the army, with a hint of anxiety and concern in his eyes. Great General Zhongqing, a burly heavenly human tribe general, half knelt to the ground and extended a respectful salute. Zhongqing nodded. Have you found out what happened in the Sinister Spirit Beast cesspool? What happened? Why did the 1,000-change divine monkey and the primordial demonic bear leave without saying goodbye? The half-knelt general trembled slightly, and he replied in a panicked voice, Heavenly Venerate Yu Qiong and the Divine Bat Emperor have fallen. And Lin, the Divine Phoenix Maiden, the demonic Blood Kirin, and Tina were the culprits. Zhongqing's expression changed drastically upon hearing this, even though he was the highest-ranking general of the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army on the surface. What? And Lin and Su Xiaolan appeared in the Sinister Spirit Beast cesspool and killed 2 mythological beasts? Where did they get the courage to do that? The Heavenly Human Tribe general replied, Apparently, some beasts witnessed a terrifying explosion of energy following the fall of the 2 mythological beasts, indicating that a mysterious battle must have taken place there. However, all of the beasts closest to that battle have perished, so we don't know what happened there. Zhongqing nodded. The heavenly gods of the Northern Heavenly Gate must have intervened. The 1,000-changed divine monkey and the primordial demonic bear must have also been mobilized by them. A fanatical expression appeared on the kneeling general's face upon hearing this. If the heavenly gods of the Northern Heavenly Gate intervened, Enlin would be dead for sure. Dead? Zhongqing chuckled coldly. If the heavenly gods of the Northern Heavenly Gate intervened, Enlin would be dead for sure. Does he really think Enlin is invincible? He's only a heavenly god at most, but our Northern Heavenly Gate has 5 heavenly gods. Enlin, to think that we viewed you as a powerful enemy. Who would have thought that you would dare to kill mythological beasts right under the noses of the heavenly gods? What an idiot. Zhongqing shook his head with a hint of disdain and mockery on his face. At the end of the day, Enlin was nothing more than a flash in the pan. This was very disappointing to him. Relay my orders. We're going to hold a celebratory heavenly ceremony, Zhongqing suddenly instructed. But, Great General, there's still no news from the Sinister Spirit Beast cesspool. The heavenly human tribe general was a little stunned. A celebratory heavenly ceremony was something that the heavenly human tribe would only hold when a joyous occasion occurred. They were holding a celebratory heavenly ceremony before news of victory had even arrived. Humph. Tell me, how did Enlin lose when the 5 heavenly gods attacked him together? Great General Zhongqing's voice was imbued with boundless divine might. The heavenly human tribe general trembled uncontrollably and was at a loss for words. That's right, a heavenly god was capable of sweeping through an entire realm. Now that 5 heavenly gods had appeared, how was Enlin supposed to fight them? Enlin is dead for sure. Our heavenly human tribe is going to hold a celebratory heavenly ceremony to announce to the world. We'll let all living beings in this world know that Enlin, who broke through her southern heavenly gate, has died a tragic death in the sinister spirit beast cesspool. Only then can we strengthen our heavenly human tribe and crush the arrogance of our enemies. Due to the destruction of the southern heavenly gate, the heavenly human tribe had all retreated 50,000 kilometers. As the great general of the heavenly human tribe, Zhongqing was extremely frustrated. Now that he had a chance to vent, he was naturally not going to let this opportunity pass him by. Thus, the Northern Heavenly Human Tribe United Army suddenly began to hold a grand celebration. They sang and danced, they sang praises of the heavens, and they drank to their heart's content. At the same time, a piece of news also began to spread from the Northern Heavenly Human Tribe United Army, shocking the entire continent. Enlin and the others had slain Heavenly Venerate Yu Qiong and the Divine Bat Emperor in the sinister spirit beast cesspool. At the same time, they were being hunted down by the heavenly gods of the Northern Heavenly Gate. Chapter 1659. Another wave of shock swept through the Tai Chu continent. Enlin had just led the extermination team to destroy the heavenly human tribe's southern heavenly gate, thereby becoming the most renowned being on the entire continent, only to receive news of his death again. His popularity had just cooled a little, but it exploded once again as his name resounded across the entire continent. All of the living beings in this world were astonished to hear this news. Aside from shock, there was also incredulity. How could such a supremely talented and powerful being die just like that? It couldn't be fake news, could it? Fake. It's definitely fake news. This must be fake news spread by the heavenly human tribe on the northern front to strike a blow to the morale of our kingdom of the 9 States United Army. An immortal sect patriarch flared up with rage. But patriarch, if this is fake news, then why hasn't the 4-9 immortal sect clarified this? An elder retorted. Well, the patriarch was stumped, and the flames of rage in his eyes gradually dimmed. He couldn't refute this. Why didn't the 4-9 immortal sect clarify this? Could it be that was what many people were thinking? The 4-9 immortal sect's silence made everyone feel as if they were silently acknowledging the heavenly human tribe's rumor. Furthermore, the sinister spirit beast cesspool had indeed witnessed 2 Dao integration stage super mighty figures fall, which further confirmed the authenticity of the heavenly human tribe United Army's rumor. This caused the rumor of Enlin's death to create another massive stir across the entire continent. All types of comments appeared. Some were lamenting over the fact that the heavens were jealous of their prodigies. Some felt sorry for Enlin, thinking that he, the divine Phoenix Maiden, and Tina's lives in exchange for the lives of 2 Dao integration stage mythological beasts was a massive loss. There were even some who were mocking and ridiculing Enlin. They felt that Enlin had become arrogant and disdainful after achieving a few victories, and that he deserved to be defeated this time. At the 4-9 immortal sect, within the core conference room, everyone was discussing this matter with dumbstruck expressions. So, our Lord sect leader is dead again? Bai Ling massaged her brows with a smile on her face. Tina's petite body sat in the main seat and recounted her experiences in the sinister spirit beast cesspool. The higher-ups of the 4-9 immortal sect finally understood what had happened, and they were all astonished by the heavenly human tribe's actions. Were they really not worried about being slapped in the face? Xin Yuan Cheng and the others in the conference room were already eager to try, as if they were looking forward to something. Let's wait for now and keep the operation of Enlin and the others a secret. It won't be too late to inform the world after my master succeeds, Xiao Tu said with a calm expression, but he really couldn't contain the smile on his face. Did the heavenly human tribe really help them? The living beings in this world would think that Big Brother and the others were all dead, thereby successfully hiding their whereabouts from us. Woof! Dabai patted the table excitedly with his paw. Furthermore, this information has been confirmed by both the heavenly human tribe and our 4-9 immortal sect, so it has a 99.9% credibility rate. Cassidy chuckled. It could be imagined that the aftermath of this matter would be very exciting. West Sea Alliance Base. Lan Xiaoni took a glance at the message before tossing it aside. Big Boss and Lin has gone missing again. I wonder who's going to get the short end of the stick this time. The beautiful mermaid had a smile on her face as she gazed toward the northeast. Her blue eyes were filled with anticipation. On the mysterious floating continent. Here, the darkness of the night was eternal, and there were shadows moving about in the darkness. The Emperor's laughter erupted into the night sky from the palace at the very center. Ha ha! Enlin is finally dead. The evil-slaying sword can't fall into his hands. Come, let's take back the evil-slaying sword. The Dark-Wing Emperor issued a command, and all of the powerful monarchs chimed in unison as their auras soared into the heavens. Enlin should have died a long time ago. Ha ha! Let's go set off some firecrackers at the place where he fell. Let's go together. I want to take some pictures as souvenirs. A series of symbols flashed upon the Dark-Wing Emperor Palace, and all of the extremely powerful Dark-Wing monarchs with black wings on their backs flew down from the palace before descending into the mortal world. They couldn't kill and plunder, but they could pick up equipment. Within the dark marshlands, within the divine palace of life, a scholarly man in a snowy white robe gently waved his fan with a smile on his face. Enlin is finally dead. Helen can rest in peace now. It's a pity that he didn't come to the dark marshlands. Otherwise, I'd definitely show him what the true Tao of blood is. A mere human dares to call himself a holy leader? Emperor Yi Deng was drinking wine with gusto, chuckling as he muttered his son's name. This was already the second time he had done this. The first time was 100 years ago. A storm was surging across the Tai Chu continent. Almost all of the living beings had their eyes fixed on Enlin's death. Right at this moment, in the northernmost region of the Tai Chu continent, behind a boundless mountain range, a black earth, black winds, and red snowflakes were the only scenery in this area. The black winds were imbued with a peculiar type of gas that could suffocate all living beings to death. The red snowflakes were filled with killing intent, and every single one of them could kill. Even a soul formation stage living being would be instantly sliced into billions of pieces by the terrifying red snowflakes, with no chance of survival. This place was far more terrifying than the southernmost region of the Tai Chu continent. It was exactly because of this that this place was a vast expanse of barren land with no scenery to speak of. The snowflakes here are quite extraordinary. Each and every one of them is imbued with extremely powerful slicing intent. Enlin sat on a black brick and advanced forward. There were a few crimson snowflakes on his palm, and an extremely cold yet sharp sensation of tearing appeared on his skin. If it weren't for the fact that Enlin's skin was extremely thick and sturdy, his hand would have most likely been sliced off by the snowflakes. Su Xiaolan sat at the very front of the brick, swinging her long legs in the air as she looked up at the murky gray sky. Black, gray, and crimson were the only colors left in this world. For some reason, she was struck by the urge to incinerate all of the snowflakes in the sky. The trees in the south, the flowers in the north, the clouds in the west, and the mist in the east. These are the four extreme regions of the Tai Chu continent, Chun-Chin explained. This was the first time Enlin had heard of something like this, and he was a little curious. Aren't the east and west oceans? Why are there clouds in the west and mist in the east? Chun-Chin smiled. When I was young, I once traveled to the ends of the four directions of the Tai Chu continent, and this is what I came up with. When you reach the end of the West Sea, it's no longer an ocean. Instead, it's above the clouds, but even I can't see what's beneath those white cotton-like clouds. When you reach the end of the East Sea, it's no longer an ocean. Instead, it's a vast expanse of white mist. I can't sense space within the mist, and I can't tell which direction is up, which is a very peculiar place. And Lin's heart jolted upon hearing this. This was a peculiar place? It was clearly very terrifying. I can see the northern heavenly gate, the celestial arch suddenly said. Chapter 1660. And Lin and the others turned toward the extreme north upon hearing this. There was indeed a gargantuan gate of light at the end of the boundless black winds and red snow. It appeared in their field of vision, as if it were the gate leading to the heavenly kingdom. And Lin, Su Xiaolan, Dongfang Zhuangshi, the celestial arch, and Chen Chen's expressions all became grave. They began to slow down as they surveyed their surroundings in case of ambushes. Chen Chen had told them that the paramount heavenly gods of earth, light, and sea were either being held back or didn't dare to attack, so they posed no threat to them. However, they still had to proceed with caution. This was because the attitudes of the other two paramount heavenly gods were still unclear. The heavenly heaven god was able to attack Tina, so how could they be sure that the paramount heavenly gods of life and sky wouldn't attack them again? If it weren't for the fact that Chun Chun had a super bad asterisk SS tool that could help everyone escape, and Lin wouldn't have made the decision to destroy another heavenly gate. Everyone drew closer and closer to the northern heavenly gate. The red snowflakes had become extremely thick, and they were even slicing a series of gashes into space. These weren't snowflakes. They were sabers falling from the sky, and these were sabers that could kill, even return to void stage mighty figures. I'm going to die if I stay in this accursed place for too long, and Lin grumbled. He had no choice but to unleash his power to protect his body. Otherwise, even though the snowflakes wouldn't be able to slice through his body, they would still hurt a lot. The blade-like snowflakes were slicing into his flesh, and it was very uncomfortable. Don't worry. We'll get out of here as soon as we destroy the gate. Chun Chen offered words of consolation. It feels really exciting, Su Xiaolan chimed in with an excited expression. The celestial arch also smiled. Invading someone's home was indeed very exciting. Mr. and Lin, how about I wait for you here? Dongfang Zhuangshi was a little intimidated. He wasn't prepared to become an accomplice to Enlin. After all, he wasn't human. He was just a Kirin. The paramount heavenly gods had all appeared here to destroy the human race, so there was no need for him to get involved. If he really cooperated with Enlin in destroying the northern heavenly gate, then the heavenly gods would definitely view him as an enemy, and he would be in for a hard time. Just imagine being surrounded by 5 heavenly gods. This was not something that just anyone could handle. Enlin naturally knew what he was thinking, but he wasn't angry. Dongfang Mingjie is also a human, right? Do you want to see her resurrected only to be killed by a heavenly god? Rumble. These words were like a thunderclap. Dongfang Zhuangshi's entire body shuddered, and a layer of fog was dispelled, only to be replaced by a towering rage. F***CK. I'll go with you and smash the door. The celestial race wanted to kill humans so much, and they had acted against the person he liked. How could he let them off so easily? Dongfang Zhuangshi, who had been hiding in the back, took the lead for the first time. Su Xiaolan pursed her lips and chuckled lightly before whispering into Enlin's ear, I didn't think you'd be so evil. You'd even take advantage of his wife. And Lin replied with a solemn expression, This isn't an issue of whether or not I'm taking advantage of her. I'm just reminding Dongfang Zhuangshi, if anyone tries to kill you, then I'll kill them without hesitation. Su Xiaolan blushed upon hearing this, but she still scolded him with a hint of reproach. That sounds so cruel. You're a mighty and righteous cultivator. How can you start talking about killing people? Isn't cultivating so that I can be with you forever? I'll naturally bully whoever tries to bully you back. And Lin chuckled. Stop. Stop. The rage that Dongfang Zhuangshi had built up after running to the front had been shattered by the conversation between Enlin and Su Xiaolan. Who could understand the frustration he was feeling right now? They weren't speaking through voice transmission. As a super mighty figure at the Tao integration pinnacle stage, Dongfang Zhuangshi was able to hear every single word that was being whispered into his ear, and Lin and Su Xiaolan tactfully shut their mouths. Then, they looked at the northern heavenly gate up ahead with cautious expressions. There was a series of extraordinary palaces in front of the gate. "Be careful, there's a formation up ahead," Chun Chun suddenly said, "and it's a formation imbued with the paramount laws of death. Even a Tao integration stage, super mighty figure would be instantly killed if they stepped into it." Up ahead, countless red snowflakes fell from the sky. They became smaller and smaller as they fell, and they completely disappeared before they even reached the ground, as if they had been erased from this world. They knew where they came from, but they didn't know why they died. In the end, not even a single trace of their existence could be found in this world. This was true death. What terrifying laws of death! And Lin's brick came to a halt with an expression of shock on his face. All of the snowflakes within a radius of over 500 kilometers disappeared in midair. The heaven and earth up ahead was deathly silent, as if time had passed. However, upon closer inspection, one would discover that this was a deathly silence. There was no change, no color, and it was a silence that hadn't changed in the slightest even after countless years. Only with change would there be vitality. If there was no change in the slightest after countless years, then it would be a lifeless painting. This was the state of death. A hint of fear appeared in Su Xiaolan's eyes. Not only will living beings die, but all things that enter the range of this formation will die as well. The falling snowflakes will die, the howling black winds will die, even the air will die. The formation before her had completely refreshed her understanding of death. No wonder the heavenly gods are willing to mobilize their entire army. This formation is no ordinary formation. Dongfang Zhuangshi couldn't help but sigh with emotion. "I've lived for hundreds of thousands of years, but I've never seen such an intricate and terrifying formation. The nomological laws of this formation are too powerful. We have to find a flaw in the formation, then use our heaven-crushing techniques to break through this formation." Chun Shin spoke with a grave expression. "Find a flaw? I'm good at that." And Lin was extremely excited. Then his eyes began to turn pure white. Divine inspection technique, activate. Boom! An extremely complex formation veined pattern that was imbued with paramount nomological laws appeared before his eyes. And Lin was instantly struck by a wave of dizziness, and his eyes stung with pain. A mighty voice imbued with supreme divine might suddenly erupted in his mind. Die! And Lin's entire body was suddenly filled with the aura of death as boundless terror spread through his body. He couldn't help but wail in anguish as his body fell backward. Su Xiaolan hurriedly caught Lin in her arms. "What's wrong? Are you all right?" Cold sweat poured down in Lin's body, as if he had just taken a trip to the gates of hell. "My divine inspection technique can't see through this formation. This cheat of his could be said to be unstoppable when it came to fighting against enemies and breaking formations. Who would have thought that it would fail now?" Chun Chen's brows furrowed slightly. This formation was set up by the heavens, so it's naturally not easy to break. Furthermore, upon closer inspection, it doesn't look like it was set up by a normal heavenly god. Instead, it's the most powerful formation set up by a paramount heavenly god. As soon as he said that, everyone's expression changed. "Which paramount heavenly god do you think set up this formation?" And Lin asked. Chun Chun heaved a faint sigh. "The Heavenly Life God." Chapter 1661. The Heavenly Life God? And Lin, Su Xiaolan, Dongfang Zhuangshi, and the Celestial Arch all faltered slightly upon hearing this before coming to a sudden realization. In this world, only existences who could control life could set up such a terrifyingly powerful death formation. Life and death were interconnected. The most powerful doctors knew how to kill a person in the most efficient way. The most powerful medicine masters were also the most powerful poison masters. The more one understood life, the more one would be able to control death. It was only logical that the heavenly life god would set up the most terrifying formation of death. The only thing that didn't make sense was that the heavenly human tribe and the heavenly life god were on opposing sides. So why would she suddenly help them set up this formation? And Lin had actually thought about this when the heavenly heaven god had first appeared. However, he knew that this was not the time to dwell on this issue. Chun Chun, do you have a way to break this formation? And Lin turned to the youth in linen garments beside him. If there was anyone present who could rival a paramount heavenly god in terms of power, it would be Chun Chun. And Lin had witnessed Chun Chen's battle against the heavenly earth god, and the fact that Chun Chun was able to hold the upper hand against the paramount heavenly earth god was a clear indication of just how powerful he was. If this were to be exposed, the entire world would definitely be in an uproar. Unfortunately, Chun Chun had asked Lin and the others to keep this a secret. Chun Chen's brows furrowed slightly before he shook his head. I don't have any ideas at the moment. This formation set up by the heavenly life god is extremely profound. The laws within the formation are extremely domineering, and karma and life and death are intertwined like an ever-changing net. One wrong step will lead to many more mistakes. I think it'll take a lot of time to decipher it. Everyone was a little disappointed to hear this. However, thinking about it, the paramount heavenly gods had spent countless hours and effort setting up this formation. If Chun Chun could instantly break it, then the heavenly life god wouldn't even have the face to be referred to as a paramount heavenly god. Chun Chun continued to research how to break the formation, and Lin and the others tried to unleash a few spell techniques into the formation of death. All of the spell techniques, without exception, were quickly destroyed upon entering the range of the spell formation. They were like snowflakes falling from the sky, quickly returning to nothingness. The only difference was that the more powerful spell techniques disappeared more slowly. A golden lightning divine halo appeared above Lin's head. At the same time, a bolt of golden void lightning imbued with the power to tear through all things tore through space before crashing down toward the formation in the distance. Everyone's attention was drawn to that bolt of lightning. They could sense the power of annihilation from the lightning. This was the power of the paramount golden void lightning, which was powerful enough to pulverize everything into nothingness. Boom! The golden void lightning roared with devastating might, but it was quickly weakened upon entering the spell formation. It transformed from a massive lightning dragon to a lightning snake, then to an earthworm, before finally disappearing into nothingness. The lightning that contained the energy of a heavenly god was similarly unable to escape, and it was minced into nothingness by the grand formation. And Lin couldn't help but feel a little disappointed upon seeing this. The only difference was that it was able to travel a distance that was almost 10 times further than everyone else's spell techniques, but it still didn't change anything. However, Chun Chen's eyes shone brightly at this moment. He turned to Lin. Your power of the heavenly gods is unable to break through the heavenly life god's power, but it can disrupt her to a certain extent. The golden void lightning triggered fluctuations in the formation of death. When the enemy's formation violently fluctuated, I saw a different scene. I think I know how to break this formation of death. And Lin was very excited. Hurry up and break it. I need your help. Chun Chen pointed at a small palace that was pure white and extremely exquisite outside the northern heavenly gate. Can you destroy that palace with lightning? And Lin faltered slightly upon hearing this. There were a dozen or so intricate palaces outside the northern heavenly gate, which were most likely the residences of the heavenly human tribe, but they were all empty now. The golden void lightning he had just unleashed wasn't as far away as that palace. It would take at least a third of the distance to travel. And Lin took a deep breath. Let me try. Boom! An extremely powerful aura began to proliferate forth. Countless bolts of dazzling golden void lightning erupted from Lin's body before intertwining to form a robe of golden void lightning, making him appear as if he were the lord of myriad lightning. His eyes were a pure golden color, and paramount lightning might pierce straight into the heavens. Lightning come, Unlin pointed up into the sky, and divine lightning surged in the heavens. His divine halo appeared, and his heavenly god power commanded the most fearsome lightning between heaven and earth. Crack, 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 the space around him crumbled. A dazzling bolt of lightning appeared from thin air. The sharp tip of the lightning was like the tip of a sword, from which the purest power of Yang materialized. Not only was this bolt of lightning imbued with the power of Enlin's heavenly god power, but was also imbued with his paramount understanding of the Tao of the sword, so it was impeccable both in terms of sharpness and power. Enlin pointed a finger toward the palace in the distance. Lightning fell. Space exploded violently. Golden lightning tore through the entire heavens, bathing the entire world in a layer of dazzling golden light. All of the red snowflakes within a radius of several hundred kilometers were instantly pulverized by the fluctuations of the lightning. The golden void lightning was like a divine sword falling from the sky, imbued with the paramount will of the Lord of Lightning as it crashed into the invisible formation of death up ahead. Boom! The two powers of the heavenly gods clashed. This was Enlin using his heavenly god power against the heavenly god power of life. The golden void lightning sword continued onward with unstoppable force. However, the omnipresent power of death was quickly whittling away at the boundless golden void lightning. This was a clash between Enlin's heavenly god power of lightning and the heavenly god power of life. The heavenly god power of lightning was completely suppressed. It was as if it had a life of its own and was rapidly aging. Not only was its power becoming weaker and weaker, but its speed was also becoming slower and slower at a rate discernible to the naked eye. At this rate, the golden void lightning sword was still unable to strike the palace. Enlin focused his gaze, and a lightning amplification technique struck the golden void lightning. Boom! The golden void lightning sword seemed to have been injected with adrenaline, and its power and speed suddenly increased explosively. Immediately afterward, the golden void lightning, which had already been reduced to the size of an earthworm, crashed into the palace. The seemingly feeble golden void lightning instantly pulverized the palace into dust. That's right, even though the golden void lightning unleashed by Enlin had been reduced to its weakest state, it was still the paramount power of the heavenly gods. It was not something that a palace could defend against. After the palace exploded, the lightning continued to wreak havoc, but it was quickly vanquished by the power of the formation of death. Enlin was dumbstruck at the sight of the palace that had been blasted apart. Su Xiaolan, Dongfang Zhuangshi, and the Celestial Arch were also given a fright. There was a heavenly human tribe, powerful being, standing like a statue within the palace. Its entire body had been charred black by the lightning, and its clothes were in tatters. Its eyes had rolled into the back of its head, and its mouth was gaping open. There was no sign of life whatsoever, and it had been blasted to death. This is a heavenly human tribe, great general. Su Xiaolan was astonished. There shouldn't be any life forms within the formation of death. Who would have thought? The Celestial Arch was also astonished. Life and death correspond to one another. In order to ensure that the formation was in harmony with the great Tao of heaven and earth, there has to be a gate of life within the absolute realm of death. It is the eye of the formation, as well as the core. That heavenly human tribe, great general, most likely played that role. Now that the core has been destroyed, the formation has lost its balance, and this is the perfect opportunity for us to break it. The youth waved a hand through the air as he spoke, and a peculiar white light enshrouded an area with a radius of over 500 kilometers before crashing down toward the formation of death like an extremely mighty mountain. Boom! As if something had been crushed, the sound of an explosion was accompanied by the sound of something shattering. Red snowflakes began to fall to the ground without any impediment. Black heavenly winds swept past the northern heavenly gate. The invisible formation of death had been broken. Chapter 1662. Everyone was extremely excited that the death formation had been broken. Enlin and the others didn't have much hope in the first place. However, Who would have thought that the heavenly life gods meticulously set up formation would be broken like this? A smile appeared on Chun Chen's face. Absolute stillness and nothingness are death, while movement is the foundation of life. The power of lightning, which is extremely mobile, happens to be the nemesis of death. When it forcibly inserted itself into the formation with the paramount power of lightning, it disrupted the balance of death, which is why we were able to break this formation so quickly. The youth turned to Lin with a meaningful gaze as he spoke. Hence, you are the key to breaking this formation. And Lin felt a surge of sweetness in his heart upon hearing this. No matter how powerful I am, I'm useless if I don't know how to use this power. Chen Shun, your insight is the key to breaking this formation. I have insight, but I don't have any power. I feel like you are the key. Chen Shun was also very humble. No, you are the most important. And Lin shook his head. No, you are the most important, Chun Chen retorted. Stop. Dongfang Zhuangshi couldn't bear to listen to this any longer. What's with this nonstop business flattery? Was the gate still going to be broken? Chen Chun ignored Dongfang Zhuangshi, and in Lin's reflection appeared in his clear eyes. I feel like we work very well together, and we can work together more often in the future. Su Xiaolan's brows perked up slightly, and Lin was also quite taken aback, but he still nodded discreetly. No problem. We're brothers, right? We can work together no matter what happens in the future. Chun Chan was the first person to arrive, so he couldn't think of any reason to refuse him. After a brief conversation, they began to carefully approach the northern heavenly gate. Perhaps it was because all of the heavenly gods were extremely confident in the death formation set up by the heavenly life god, but they couldn't see any spell formations or restrictions. Thinking about it, they were planning to insta-kill Lin before going back to guard the gate. Who would have thought that all of the heavenly gods were trapped in the divine mirror world? And Lin even poked the heavenly human tribe great general who had been charred by his attack. Then, like a speck of dust, the heavenly human tribe great general was blown away by the wind. He is completely turned into dust. An astonished expression appeared on Lin's face. Was his golden void, lightning really that bad *SS? As if he knew what Lin was thinking, Chun Shin explained, when you struck him, he also suffered the backlash of the death formation, which was why he completely turned into dust. So it wasn't his golden void lightning that was bad *SS. And Lin was a little disappointed as he walked toward the northern heavenly gate. The northern heaven gate was similar to the southern heaven gate. It was supported by two colorful energy pillars over 100,000 zhang tall. The two enormous bronze gates were like two small continents, so huge that one would feel despair. Every time I see this door, I want to go in. And Lin murmured. Su Xiaolan nodded and said, Me too. I really want to see what's behind the door. If the heavenly human tribe can come and go through the gate, we should be able to as well. Don't do anything stupid. The Celestial Arch maintained a cautious attitude. If you really go in, you might not be able to come back. Chen Shun was on the same side as the Celestial Arch, and Lin didn't waste any more time with words. His three buff mystic techniques elevated his aura to the extreme, and the dark sword intent from his evil-slaying sword soared into the sky for several dozen kilometers. The power of darkness was imbued into the blade of the sword without any reservation. Evil sword technique, royal divine monarch. And Lin let loose a clear cry as he slashed his sword toward the gargantuan gate pillar. Boom! The dark sword intent collided with the gate pillar. The gate pillar that Lin had envisioned did not shatter. The divine tool, evil-slaying sword imbued with a dark sword intent, slashed down upon the pillar, and a sharp screeching sound rang through the air. Sword intent surged, but the pillar of energy remained completely unmoved. Instead, Lin was almost knocked out of his hand by the terrifying recoil. He focused his gaze and was a little dumbstruck. He couldn't even leave a single crack on the gate. What's going on? Why isn't it working? Lin murmured. Everyone else also revealed a look of astonishment. Back at the southern heavenly gate, no one had been able to break through the gate, no matter what spell technique they used. However, and Lin unleashed a dark-type spell technique upon receiving Chun Chen's instructions, and he was able to slice through the energy pillar with a single strike. Now that he was using the same trick again, why didn't it work? And Lin was unconvinced, and he unleashed his dark-type power again before slashing toward the gate pillar. The sword intent was like a black crescent moon as it tore through the gargantuan energy pillar with astonishing power. However, the energy pillar remained completely unmoved. It still doesn't work. And Lin was on the verge of a mental breakdown. Chun Chen also sprang into action, and he unleashed his heaven-crushing techniques. Su Xiaolan, Dongfang Zhuangshi, and the Celestial Arch also unleashed spell techniques upon the bronze gate or gate pillar upon seeing this. Devastating power instantly engulfed the northern heavenly gate. They unleashed a barrage of attacks. Everyone focused their gazes, but it still didn't work. The northern heavenly gate was like an eternal object that had existed since time immemorial and was completely unscathed. After a while, everyone was in despair. They had finally found an opportunity to sneak in. However, their enemy's home had an invincible hack. What were they supposed to do? And Lin didn't care anymore as he unleashed a barrage of spell techniques upon a massive pillar in the distance after a while. Suddenly, a resounding boom erupted. The sky-propping pillar split open. Everyone instantly fell silent. Everyone stared at Lin with dumbstruck expressions. And Lin was also astonished as he stared at the colorful energy pillar. It worked? It worked? What spell technique did I just use? Su Xiaolan snapped. You used the wings of true fire, the wind blade slash, the god of war heaven blasting cannon, and a spell technique like the ice vortex, as well as some variant of the mountain quaking fist. And Lin listened to Su Xiaolan's explanation as he unleashed one spell technique after another upon the colorful energy pillar. After that, when he unleashed the variant of the mountain quaking fist, his golden fist crashed into the colorful energy pillar, and the boundless power was able to shatter the pillar. Boom! The pillar crumbled, creating a ghastly crater in the ground. And Lin stared blankly at the scenes unfolding before him before looking down at his own fist. Did the power of the heavenly mountain god work this time? Everyone was already whooping with excitement. That's great. The northern heavenly gate is going to become history. The celestial arch was elated. I was struck by a sense of pride when I saw the pillar fall. So, destroying a heavenly gate is something to be proud of. Dongfang Zhuangshi was also very elated. And Lin is the best. Su Xiaolan smiled. The rest was quite simple. And Lin also destroyed the other pillar. Immediately afterward, he unleashed a barrage of heaven-crushing techniques upon the passageway before tossing the gargantuan bronze gate into the chaotic turbulence. The northern heavenly gate no longer existed in this world. Chapter 1663. At the center of the kingdom of the 9 states. Within the white nectar sea. At the center of a pure white sea with no end in sight. There was an extremely thick tree that pierced straight into the heavens, and it was impossible to see its peak. Its trunk was covered in ancient tree bark, which was like a suit of armor that was impervious to both fire and water. Countless branches extended outwards. The branches were lush with leaves, and all kinds of strange flowers bloomed at the tips of the branches, competing with each other for beauty. All types of adorable little beasts and birds chirped and hopped around happily on the gargantuan tree, creating a vibrant and peaceful scene. Everything was very beautiful and natural. As one climbed up the tree, their field of vision became wider and wider. From mighty figures with good eyesight, they could even see the land beyond the white nectar sea. The tree pierced through the clouds, the atmosphere, and even the sun. A woman in a pair of white boots and a light green dress sat on a branch that extended outward, swinging her slender, white feet from side to side. Her dark green hair fluttered in the turbulent spatial energy, and the pink flower petals on the tree danced around her hair, adding a hint of beauty to the scene. She stretched out her slender hand that was adorned with a green garland and pulled back her hair that was sticking to her cheek, revealing her pointy and white ears that were like bamboo shoots. Her pair of orange-red eyes were as dazzling as the setting sun and as bright as the stars, captivating people. At this moment, her eyes were also reflecting two different colors, the world of day and the starry night sky. At the top of the tree, the scenery was spectacular. Even during the day, one could see the vast starry night sky and the ground below. The woman's beauty was otherworldly, and no mortal living being would think that a woman like her belonged to the mortal world. Her beauty was not something that any living being in this world could touch. At this moment, her willow-like eyebrows were slightly furrowed. Her beautiful eyes looked towards the north, as if she could see through countless voids and see a different scene. After a long while, her cherry lips parted as she murmured to herself, "It's Enlin and Chun again. Not only did they destroy my formation, but now they've even destroyed the northern heavenly gate." At this moment, a lark flew to her side. "Chirp, chirp, chirp, chirp," the lark chirped. The woman smiled. "The news is already spread. Radiance, earth, and ocean must be furious now, right? It's just that your plan didn't succeed. Originally, you wanted the human race and the celestial race to exhaust each other's strength. Who would have thought that those celestial gods would be trapped inside before they could kill them?" "Chirp, chirp, chirp," the lark said regretfully. The woman stretched out her fair index finger and lightly tapped the lark. The lark's vitality was instantly sucked dry, turning into dust and dissipating. The woman took a deep breath, as if she had tasted a delicious meal. She then continued to look towards the north as the corners of her lips curled up into a charming smile. Her eyes were filled with curiosity and passion. "Enlin, who are you?" In the northernmost area of North Song Mountain boundary, a few figures were flying toward the Kingdom of the Nine States at an extremely fast speed. They had accomplished something big and were now in high spirits, their faces beaming with happiness. Enlin had even dragged Su Xiaolan and the others to take a photo of them at the northern Heavenly Gate ruins. This was evidence of their victory and was destined to spread throughout the entire Taichu continent. Dongfang Zhuangshi was going to be famous in the future. He had already decided to join Enlin. The heavenly human tribe wanted to destroy the human race, which meant that they wanted to kill Dongfang Mengjie. They were trying to kill his lover. So how could he yield? He might as well go all out and do something big. "I feel like we've done something big again without even realizing it," Su Xiaolan murmured. "That's right. The northern heavenly gate was destroyed as soon as we came to our senses." The celestial arch was the most dazed of them all. He had only pushed the bronze gate once, upon which the northern heavenly gate exploded. Perhaps this was what it meant to win by doing nothing. Fate is truly a wonderful thing. Enlin sighed with emotion. He was the most moved by this. He had only planned to beat up a few mythological beasts to complete the system's mission. How did they end up destroying someone else's northern heavenly gate instead? This mission was both dangerous and simple. All I can say is that we just so happened to have all of the conditions to do so. Chen Shun turned to Enlin with a smile. "You experienced the most perilous part first. If it weren't for the fact that you trapped the 5 heavenly gods in Tina's world, our mission would have been a complete joke." Enlin nodded. That was true. Xiao Fu had said that they were dead for sure, but who would have thought that they would be able to turn the tables on them? What happened next was naturally a blessing in disguise as they tore down the Heavenly Gate ruins. However, why was my Heavenly Mountain power effective against the Heavenly Gate pillars this time? Enlin was still perplexed. Chun Shun paused momentarily before replying. "Perhaps it's because your family didn't open the Northern Heavenly Gate?" The Celestial Arch, Su Xiaolan, and Dongfang Zhuangshi were all dumbstruck upon hearing this. What the hell was that supposed to mean? How could the Heavenly Gate be opened by Enlin's family? Enlin knew what Chun Shun was trying to say. If he was the wielder of the Heavenly Darkness God, then the Southern Heavenly Gate was opened by the Heavenly Darkness God, but the other Heavenly Gates weren't opened by the Heavenly Darkness God. Normal Heavenly Gods shouldn't be able to open the Heavenly Gates, but my Heavenly Mountain power was able to do so, which means that the Northern Heavenly Gate is connected to the Heavenly Mountain God Superior, the Heavenly Earth God? Enlin asked after a brief hesitation. Chun Shun nodded. He was clearly thinking the same thing. The heavenly mountain god was a part of the heavenly earth god, so its heavenly mountain power was able to interfere with the heavenly gates. This was a very important piece of information. Then why didn't the heavenly earth god appear there? And Lin was still perplexed. Apparently, the heavenly light god has a special ability that can heal backlash from the heavenly Tao. The heavenly earth god has already suffered backlash from the heavenly Tao. It should be receiving treatment from the heavenly light god's power of light right now. Qinshin voiced out his speculation. And Lin came to a sudden realization. No wonder you suggested destroying the northern heavenly gate. A thought then occurred to him. If the northern heavenly gate is the heavenly earth god and the western heavenly gate is the heavenly sea god, then who opened the central heavenly gate and the eastern heavenly gate? The heavenly light god is the one who opened the eastern heavenly gate, Chen replied. How do you know? And Lin was perplexed again. Chen replied with a smile. The sun rises in the east. And Lin, was this explanation really reliable? As for the central heavenly gate, I've seen it from afar once, but I didn't dare to approach it, as my instincts told me that I would most likely die if I approached it. Chen spoke with a grave expression. As soon as he said that, everyone's expression turned cold. What kind of danger would make Chen, who is a paramount heavenly god, say something like this? They set this question aside for now. 2 hours later, a boundless, lush grassland appeared before their eyes. A smile appeared on Lin's face. For non-immortal sect, I'm back. Chapter 1664. Sai Ingxiong, this is strange. Why is our pavilion master, Bai, so happy even though our grandmaster is dead? Dongjun whispered softly as she held onto Cheng Ingxiong's arm. Not far away from them, Bai Ling's white dress fluttered in the wind as she held a watering can in her hand. She hummed a little tune as she watered a flower with overlapping jeans. I don't get it either. 100 years ago, when sect leader Lin died, Pavilion Master Bai was grief-stricken for a very, very long time. Why is she so happy this time around? Cheng Ingxiong scratched his head in confusion. Dongjun's foxtail suddenly slapped Cheng Ingxiong's butt. Ouch! What are you doing? Cheng Ingxiong was shocked. An excited expression appeared on Dongjun's face as she said, I've always felt that Pavilion Master Bai had an indescribable feeling towards sect leader Lin. Could it be that Pavilion Master Bai's love for Lin turned into hatred after seeing how close Xiaolon and Lin were? Is that why she's so happy and elated now that sect leader Bai has passed away? Cheng Ingxiong was shocked. It can't be that perverted. Right at this moment, a light particle energy thread suddenly hovered over Cheng Ingxiong and Dongjun's necks. The terrifying, murderous aura seemed to be able to freeze the void. Just a second ago, the two of them were still talking excitedly, but now they didn't even dare to move. They felt that their necks would be cut off if they moved. Cheng Ingxiong, do you have nothing better to do? Have you finished reading this slightly variable string resonance supersynthesis algorithm? Bai Ling's voice traveled into his ears. Cheng Ingxiong trembled. I didn't finish. You're not done yet, and you're still hanging around? You sure have a lot of free time on your hands, huh? Bai Ling glanced at Cheng Ingxiong with a hint of a smile on her face. I'm sorry, Pavilion Lord Bai. I'll go take a look now. Cheng Ingxiong was like a child who had done something wrong. He kept nodding and apologizing. Only then did the light particles disappear. Cheng Ingxiong and Dongjun's clothes were already soaked in cold sweat. They hurriedly said goodbye and fled. This experience had taught them a profound lesson. Gossiping about Bai Ling would cost them their lives. Bai Ling shook her head with a smile as she watched the two of them run away. Then, she continued to water her experimental plant. Why do these disciples love to gossip so much? The woman smiled gently. Suddenly, she felt that something was wrong. No, Dongjun, that vixen, why would she say something like that? Could it be that I really have feelings for Lin? Bai Ling was a little dazed, and she was completely oblivious to the fact that water was dripping from the canteen in her hand. After a while, she spat on the ground and stopped that ridiculous idea. Really, I was almost led astray by them. Next time, I have to give them more homework. It must be because they don't have enough homework. Cheng Yingxiong and Dong Zhun actually have time to date. Bai Ling muttered to herself as she continued to water the plants. Meanwhile, on the drill ground of the 4-9 Immortal Sect, the sound of spell techniques exploding continuously rang out in the training field. The disciples of the sect were cultivating diligently. There were also a dozen or so disciples who were bowing deeply to the statue of a man in the middle of the training field. The statue was of their sect leader Lin, a legend of the continent. All of the disciples of the 4-9 Immortal Sect revered their sect leader. Unfortunately, the Lord Sect Master did not live for long before he died. He was like an epiphyllum blooming on the Tai Chu continent. He had annihilated the heavenly human tribe on the southern front, broken through the southern heavenly gate, and become the most powerful being on the Tai Chu continent. However, just as his name was spreading across the continent, he suddenly died a spectacular death. The entire continent was then rocked again. This was a man who could shake the entire Tai Chu continent. He was very powerful, wasn't he? He had killed the most powerful being in the sinister spirit beast cesspool, then sacrificed himself in the face of 5 heavenly gods. That was very tragic, wasn't it? Tears welled up in the eyes of the dozen or so disciples as they looked at the statue of Lin and recalled their sect leader's smiling face. There were the dozen or so disciples who had just joined the sect. A month ago, they had been taken to the drill ground by Sun Yulao to pay their respects to the deceased sect leader Lin. Just as they were bowing to their sect leader with boundless reverence, their sect leader suddenly came back to life, giving them a massive fright. After that, their sect leader displayed his peerless might to the world. All of this made them extremely proud. They were proud that their sect had such a mighty sect leader. However, not long after that, they were met with tragic news. They once again stood beside Lin's statue on the drill ground. It was the same scene, and it was a very similar scene. The only difference was that sect leader Lin really had died this time. Many places on the Tai Chu continent had already begun to hold mourning ceremonies, but the 4-9 Immortal Sect still remained silent. However, their silence was already a sign of their stance. Both the enemy and myself were official witnesses, and they cannot be faked. Wah! A beautiful female disciple couldn't help but burst into tears. Man, don't be sad. Our sect leader doesn't want us to wallow in sorrow. We should work hard to cultivate and avenge our sect leader. Meng Wei spoke with high morale. Another female disciple, Su Siqing, spoke expressionlessly. There's no way we can avenge our sect leader. Our enemy is a heavenly god, and we're not supremely talented prodigies. So how are we going to avenge our sect leader? We can only slowly progress like a snail before waiting for our deaths. Su Siqing, how can you be so pessimistic? A voice suddenly sounded. All of the disciples turned toward him before immediately extending salutes. Brother Sunday, Sun Yulao nodded before continuing with a serious expression. Have you forgotten what our sect leader said? Everyone who joins the 4-9 Immortal Sect is a protagonist in this world. Protagonists have limitless possibilities, so don't set any upper limits for yourselves. As long as you work hard, you'll be able to attain a glorious future. The protagonist will not die, but the biggest protagonist of our sect is dead. Can we really be the little protagonists? Su Siqing still said unhurriedly, but the knife pierced the heart. Sun Yulao didn't know what to say. He really couldn't understand why such a beautiful female disciple was always stabbing people in the back. Meng Wei scolded, "That's enough. You're being disrespectful to our sect leader, and he's definitely going to be very angry." All right. I'll apologize to our sect leader." Su Siqing still responded with a salted fish indifferent look, but when she faced the statue in front of her, she showed a rare sadness. "I'm sorry, sect leader Lin." Su Siqing bowed in apology. "It's all right, I forgive you." A gentle voice sounded. Su Siqing faltered for a moment. This voice was so familiar. She raised her head, upon which she was dumbstruck. All of the disciples looked toward the source of the voice, and their pupils contracted as their mouths gaped open. They were completely dumbstruck. Chapter 1665. A man in a white robe stood beside the sect leader's statue. His smile was as warm as the spring breeze. However, that was not the point. The point was that he looked exactly like the statue of the sect leader. Sect leader Enlin. Meng Wei's legs turned to jelly, and he almost fell to his knees. The rest of the disciples were also in shock and disbelief. The entire martial arts practice field erupted. Oh my God, am I seeing things? Sect leader Enlin came back to life? Dream on. I must be dreaming. Some of the disciples really stabbed themselves with their swords. Their decisiveness was comparable to that of Enlin's. When the blood splattered all over his face, he finally wailed in pain, "No, this is not a dream. It really, really hurts." The disciples who had just finished paying their respects to Enlin's statue were the most dumbfounded. Alive? How did the sect leader come back to life? The last time they entered the sect, they paid their respects to the statue of the dead sect leader. Then, the sect leader who had disappeared for 100 years came back to life and announced his return. This time, they paid their respects to the statue of the dead sect leader again. Then, the sect leader, who was publicly acknowledged to be dead, came back to life and stood in front of them. Was this a surprise? No, it was a shock. The sect disciples were starting to doubt their lives after witnessing this scene. Could it be that paying respects to the statue could bring back the sect leader? What the hell was going on? Right at this moment, the acting sect leader Su Xiaolan descended from the sky and appeared in front of everyone. Enlin clapped his hands with a smile and announced in a loud voice, "All right, don't look like you've seen a ghost. This is all fake news spread by the outside world. Su Xiaolan and I are not dead." The martial arts practice field finally welcomed a wave of enthusiastic cheers. "Welcome back, sect leader." The excited voices of the disciples gathered together and resonated throughout the entire martial arts practice field. At this moment, Enlin announced another piece of news with a smile. "All right, I have another piece of good news for everyone. We have broken through the northern heavenly gate, so you don't have to worry about the northern battlefront anymore." Boom! Enlin's words were like a bolt of lightning, and all the disciples present were dumbstruck. The lively atmosphere suddenly quieted down. No one was able to recover from the shock of what he had just said. After a few seconds of silence, a disciple murmured, "What happened? The northern heavenly gate was broken? Did I hear wrong? Didn't I hear Enlin and Su Xiaolan were killed by the 5 heavenly gods? Why did you break their door in the blink of an eye? Heavenly gate was broken. Is sect leader Enlin trying to die?" Just as the disciples were in a state of shock and disbelief, immortals with powerful auras flew over from afar. They were the pavilion lords of the various pavilions. All of the pavilion lords wore warm smiles on their faces, as if they had already known that Enlin would be fine. Then, when they heard that Enlin had been broken by the northern heavenly gate, expressions of shock appeared on their faces. Debai's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. "Holy F***CK, Big Brother, and you've accomplished yet another earth-shattering feat without even saying a single word?" Woof! Dabai was incredulous. He had already heard from Tina that Enlin had gone to break through the northern heavenly gate. However, he really did succeed. "Should we call you Lord Tower Thief from now on?" Lu Qinhuan draped an arm around Enlin's shoulder as if they were good friends. "Tower Thief? No way. I broke through the enemy's defenses fair and square. Even the spell formation set up by the paramount heavenly god of life was broken by me." Enlin spoke with a smug expression. Cries of surprise erupted from all around. The heavenly god of life. The paramount heavenly god of life. Sect leader Enlin really was bad, *SS. Immediately afterward, Enlin made his way toward the immortal sect's conference chamber under the escort of all the pavilion lords. Enlin was going to the conference chamber to boast. Not long after that, a piece of news spread from the 4-9 immortal sect. Massive waves were surging through the Tai Chu continent. The 4-9 immortal sect announced the return of sect leader Enlin. Enlin, Su Xiaolan, and the Celestial Arch had destroyed the northern heavenly gate. The northern heavenly gate no longer existed in this world. All of the living beings on the Tai Chu continent were astonished. They stared blankly at this piece of news, and they were struck by the absurdity of the world for the first time. They were still mourning the death of Enlil the day before. But today, Enlil announced his return and destroyed the heavenly human tribe's northern heavenly gate. F***ck off. Was he messing with them? Some powerful beings even wanted to chop down the editor who had published the news. Many people were still quite skeptical. However, the number one power of the Kingdom of the Nine States, the Celestial Court, soon made an official announcement and confirmed this fact. Furthermore, a few photos of Enlil and the others after destroying the northern heavenly gate were released to the public. This was the final nail in the coffin. What do you mean Enlil is dead? He's still alive and kicking. Not only that, but he had also jumped into the enemy's lair and destroyed the northern heavenly gate. All of a sudden, Enlil, Su Xiaolan, and the Celestial Arch dominated the headlines of all of the major news outlets on the Tai-Chu continent. Enlil's name resounded throughout the entire continent once again. Extra, extra! The sect leader of the 4-9 Immortal sect, Enlil, along with the Divine Phoenix Maiden, the Celestial Arch of the Celestial Court, the demonic Blood Kirin, and an anonymous Chun, destroyed the heavenly human tribe's northern heavenly gate on the 6th. Holy F***ck. Enlil's death shocked the entire continent yesterday, and now it's Enlil destroying the northern heavenly gate? Do they think I'm an idiot or something? F***ck. Which heartless media outlet is this fake news? I'm going to kill them. Enlil died. Enlil came back to life. Enlil died again. Enlil came back to life. Some people were astonished, some people were excited, and some people were completely blown away by this earth-shattering news. But didn't the heavenly human tribe on the northern front say that Enlil died? The 4-9 Immortal sect is also saying that Enlil didn't die. Which one should we believe? Idiot, Enlil is holding an elated sect celebration. Which one do you think we should believe? My God, what's going on with the Northern Heavenly Human Tribe United Army holding a large-scale celebration? This celebrating the destruction of their Northern Heavenly Gate? Disco dancing? This news swept through the entire continent. At the same time, all of the living beings on the Tai-Chu continent couldn't help but turn toward the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army on the northern front, where the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army had been celebrating when they were drinking and celebrating, and Lin seemed to have destroyed the northern heavenly gate. Were they celebrating with the heavens that their gate of heaven had been blown up? All of the living beings on the Tai-Chu continent felt their blood run cold at this moment at the Northern Heavenly Human Tribe United Army base. All of the beasts in the sinister spirit beast cesspool were dumbstruck by this news. Their home had been bombed? Weren't the 5 heavenly gods supposed to kill Enlil? Weren't they supposed to celebrate Enlil's death together? Could it be that the heavenly human tribe were even going to lie to their own people? The high and mighty heavenly human tribe were no better off than the beast tribes. A large number of heavenly human tribe living beings had committed suicide. They really couldn't bear the humiliation of celebrating the destruction of their home. This kind of experience was an unparalleled mental blow to them. Great General Zhong Qing, the culprit behind the celebration, had finally gone insane after confirming that the Northern Heavenly Gate had indeed been destroyed and that Enlil was still alive. He was chanting incessantly, "Fake, it's all fake, the people are fake, and the world is fake." All in all, the morale of the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army had been dealt a devastating blow. It was also at this moment that the 4-9 Immortal sect held a celebratory event that attracted the attention of the entire world. Chapter 1666. Sect leader Enlil led his army to break through the Southern Heavenly Gate, then the Northern Heavenly Gate, creating a massive stir across the entire continent. The morale of the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army was greatly boosted. Countless people revered Enlil as the #1 war god of the human race. Enlil's monstrous battle record had proven that he was the #1 war god of the human race, and almost no one had any objections to his title. Within the Celestial Court, the 7 Celestial Maidens were bombarding the Celestial Arch with questions. They were very curious about his heroic exploits in breaking through the Northern Heavenly Gate. However, the Celestial Arch didn't really want to talk about it. After all, aside from pushing open the Bronze Gate, he hadn't done anything else. He really couldn't bring himself to talk about it. However, the 7 celestial maidens were relentless. Celestial Maiden Tianyu, who was the most knowledgeable among them, kept asking the Celestial Arch what Lin had done. The Celestial Arch was so enraged that he told them to go ask him if they really wanted to know. Celestial Maiden Tianyu thought about it and realized that it made sense. They could just ask Lin. After that, she sped toward the 4-9 Immortal Sect, leaving the Celestial Arch standing on the sidelines at the West Sea Alliance. Lan Xiaoni invited all of the West Sea mighty figures to a banquet to celebrate the destruction of the Northern Heavenly Gate. The beautiful mermaid's cheeks were completely flushed from drinking, and she raised her wine glass high into the air with an unbridled smile on her face. Look at all of you. I told you yesterday that Lin didn't die, but none of you believed me. Some of you even said that you were going to retreat and surrender. But now, you've all been slapped in the face. All of the mighty figures at the banquet table were blushing, and they really wanted to find a hole to crawl into. Last time, I told you that Lin didn't die, but no one believed me. It took me over 100 years to slap all of you in the face. This time, I told you that Lin didn't die and told you to believe him, but it only took me a single day to slap all of you in the face. The most revered being in the West Sea spoke in a drunken manner, as if she had gone insane, but none of the mighty figures dared to interject. I just want to know. Lan Xiaoni raised a glass of strong liquor and downed it in one gulp. Tears welled up in her eyes as she said, "Is it really that difficult to believe in Lin? How many times do you want to be slapped in the face before you're willing to believe him?" Alliance leader Lan's words reverberated in the Great Hall, and the surrounding sea instantly surged with raging waves. It was as if a god was enraged. In the heart of the dark marshlands, divine palace of life, Emperor Fu Tian silently waved his fan with an ugly expression on his face. How could he be alive? How did Lin come back to life? How could these people be so irresponsible when spreading news? Even the Celestial Clan could spread fake news. Emperor Yi Ding was the one who had received the greatest blow. He was still in a daze. Yesterday, they were still drinking wine to comfort their son's spirit in heaven. And Lin's death was a joyous occasion for them. Was he going to tell his son that Lin had come back to life? It wasn't like he hadn't done this before. He had done it once before. But this time, it had only been a day, and he was going to tell his son that the news of Lin's death was fake. If his son was still alive, he would probably go insane, not to mention that his son would go crazy. Even he was about to go crazy from all this news. What the F***CK was going on? Within the sinister spirit beast cesspool, a group of Darkwing tribe powerful beings tore through space and arrived. Ha! This should be the place wherein Lin fought. The Darkwing Emperor wore a wide smile as he looked around at the rubble in a radius of several thousand kilometers. Let's search carefully. Perhaps we'll find Lin's body. He pulled out an inky black feather. This feather could absorb the residual energy released by the evil-slaying sword on the battlefield, then use this residual energy as a guide to find the location of the evil-slaying sword. Sure enough, his feather was absorbing a burst of energy. It looked like this was indeed the place wherein Lin had fought. This made the Darkwing Emperor even more certain of his guess. Soon, the tip of the feather began to point in a certain direction. That's strange. Why is it pointing toward the southeast? The direction of the Kingdom of the 9 States? And it's very far away. Could it be within the Kingdom of the 9 States? A sense of foreboding welled up in the Darkwing Emperor's heart. Could it be that the heavenly human tribe on the northern front took the evil-slaying sword as a spoil of war? That was a possibility. However, this was the closest the Darkwing tribe had ever been to the evil-slaying sword. They had to get the evil-slaying sword back, even if they had to take it by force. The Darkwing Emperor had made up his mind, and he was just about to issue an order to set off to the Kingdom of the 9 States. At this moment, the Starry Night Monarch's expression shifted drastically. Beep, beep, beep. Emperor, bad news. What is it? Stop making a fuss. Watch your image. The Darkwing Emperor was extremely displeased. The Darkwing tribe had been forced into seclusion for many years. No, many years. Now that they had finally reappeared in the world, the Darkwing Emperor was extremely disappointed to see their monarch lose his composure like this. I just saw a huge piece of news. And Lin didn't die. Not only did he not die, but he even broke through the northern heavenly gate of the heavenly human tribe united army with the divine Phoenix Maiden and the others. The Starry Night Monarch exclaimed with shock and horror. Holy F***! The Darkwing Emperor felt like he had been struck by lightning. It's fake, right? The once mighty Emperor spoke with great difficulty. It's true. The Starry Night Monarch also read the news before exclaiming in shock. The 4-9 Immortal sect is holding a celebratory banquet, and according to some sources, many heavenly human tribe powerful beings on the northern front have committed suicide. Even great General Zhong Qing has gone insane. Gasp. All of the Darkwing tribe monarchs drew a sharp intake of breath. What was a true mighty figure? They could drive a bunch of heavenly human tribe powerful beings insane without even doing anything. This was a true mighty figure. Then what should we do, Emperor? The Starry Night Monarch asked with an excited expression. What should we do? The Darkwing Emperor's face convulsed, and his regal aura suddenly erupted from his body. What else can we do? This is one of Lin's schemes. Are we going to walk right into his trap? Do you think our brave and resourceful tribe will fall for his little tricks? All of the Darkwing tribe monarchs puffed out their chests upon hearing this. All of the Darkwing tribe monarchs puffed out their chests in response. And Lin won't be able to fool us. We'll have to think about how to take the evil slaying sword. The Darkwing Emperor finally made a decision. All of the Darkwing tribe monarchs yelled in unison, Your Majesty is wise. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. The 4-9 Immortal sect was decorated with lanterns and streamers. Dazzling fireworks exploded in the night sky, stunning the night sky. A large banner was unfurled on the Dao Plaza, upon which a few words were written in a flamboyant style. Congratulations to the 4-9 Immortal Sect Extermination Team for breaking through 2 paths in a row, crushing the heavenly human tribe beneath their feet, and shattering the heavenly gate with their fists. These words were extremely bold and contained extremely terrifying heaven-crushing true intent. Anyone who saw them would naturally feel a boundless sense of heroism and an urge to defy the heavens. These words had been written by none other than the sect elder, Shui Zhantian. After hearing that Enlin had broken through 2 heavenly gates in a row, he was filled with reverence toward his master. As soon as he saw Enlin return, he clung to him like a madman, refusing to let him leave his side. Enlin was quite exasperated by Shui Zhantian's fanatical worship, and he could only allow him to rub against his chest. From afar, it looked like the graceful Lord Sect Master with a lump of white stuff in front of his chest. It would be an extremely good image. Next, let's welcome our sect leader to make a brief speech. Bai Ling spoke with a smile. Clatter, clatter. Raucous applause erupted from thousands of sect disciples. All of them were inner sect disciples of the 4-9 Immortal sect, and all of them were staring at the man in a flowing white robe with scorching light in their eyes. Chapter 1667. Enlin walked toward the podium with Shui Zhantian on his back. He looked down at the vibrant sect disciples, and a sense of elation welled up in his heart. There are many new faces below the podium. This should be the first time you've heard me speak. Enlin looked at the countless pairs of scorching eyes below the podium with a smile. I actually wanted to hold a celebration back when the Southern Heavenly Gate was broken, but I didn't have time to plan it as I had some urgent business to take care of. Now, I can hold a celebration for both the Northern and Southern Heavenly Gate and the Southern Heavenly Gate at the same time. That way, I won't have to give 2 speeches in a row. Everyone below the podium burst into raucous laughter. Many of the newbie disciples were even more intimidated by Enlin's nonchalant display of power. Breaking a heavenly gate was enough to shake the entire world and create a world-class celebration. Sect leader Enlin, on the other hand, was just holding a simple celebration after breaking 2 sects. As for me, the original intention of creating this sect was to have a place where I could cultivate with my friends and classmates. At the time, my goal was actually quite simple. A resigned expression appeared on Enlin's face. But before we knew it, the 4-9 Immortal sect has already become one of the most powerful sects on the entire continent and the leader of the 5 great sects of the Kingdom of the 9 States. To be honest, I don't know why it has become so bad *SS. Su Xiaolan's lips twitched. All of the disciples were dumbstruck. Sect leader and doesn't know how bad *SS he is? Enlin took a deep breath and continued. But our sect is already so powerful, and this is a fact that cannot be changed. As such, we should bear the responsibility of being a top-rate, immortal sect. We must have a clear conscience, regardless of whether it is in our moral conduct or our pursuit of Tao. All of the disciples puffed out their chests. In reality, they had always been leading by example and protecting the Kingdom of the 9 States. Not only were they of high moral character, but they were also brave enough to fight against the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army. They had never brought shame to the sect and had always done their best. It had to be said that the various pavilion masters and elders had a good eye for disciples. Enlin saw the expressions of the disciples below the stage and knew that they did not disappoint him. Now that you've joined the 4-9 Immortal sect, we're family. If you encounter any difficulties, you can ask your family for help, and the sect will do its best to help you. But if you do anything that violates the sect's rules, then we won't protect you either. All of the disciples below the stage nodded upon hearing this. Even though the 4-9 Immortal sect had given them a lot of freedom, the sect had always had zero tolerance for depraved behavior. 3 years ago, a core disciple of the sect took advantage of his sect's background and forcibly raped a female cultivator from an ordinary cultivation sect. When the clown elder found out, he immediately castrated that disciple and destroyed his cultivation. Then, he carried that disciple behind his back and personally went to ask for forgiveness. This caused quite a stir in the Kingdom of the 9 States. There were almost no scumbags in the 4-9 Immortal sect. However, if scumbags did appear, the elders and pavilion lords would definitely not protect them. Instead, they would severely punish them, and the 4-9 Immortal sect's reputation had never been better. However, there were also some cases that went a little too far. For example, 10 years ago, there was a beautiful female disciple from the Moon Pavilion who had gone out to gather herbs. However, she caught the eye of an elder from another sect, who immediately captured her and raped her. The elder had thought that his plan was flawless, but he had underestimated the 4-9 Immortal sect determination to protect their disciples. In order to find that female disciple, Su Xiaolan had even asked High Priest Yu Feiyu of the Wesi Alliance to perform a divination and find that sect. After Su Qianyun saw that the Moon Pavilion disciple had been raped beyond recognition, she was enraged and killed all 521 cultivators from that sect who knew about this matter. The so-called knowing about this matter refer to the fact that the elder had captured a pitiful female cultivator. The 521 cultivators here referred to all of the cultivators from that sect. That elder had to go through countless cruel tortures before he was finally killed. The 4-9 Immortal sect wouldn't tolerate their own disciples committing crimes, and they certainly wouldn't tolerate others committing crimes against their disciples. Otherwise, they would be annihilated. Was it too much? It was indeed a bit too much. However, this was also the style of the 4-9 Immortal sect that had persisted for over 100 years. This was a very domineering style, but no one could dislike it. Instead, many people wanted to join the sect. It couldn't be helped. A sect like this was simply too likable. The 4-9 Immortal sect had already become a cultivation holy land for the human race. Half of the students who graduated from Xiaoxing United University wanted to join the 4-9 Immortal sect. The 4-9 Immortal sect and the Celestial Court were like Tsinghua University and Peking University in the eyes of the mortal world's China students. Which one to choose was a problem. Oh wait, no, they might not necessarily choose you. Compared to the Celestial Court, the 4-9 Immortal sect placed more emphasis on recruiting elites, so they accepted very few people. It was exactly because of this that even if one could join the 4-9 Immortal sect, it seemed like they had more reason to brag about it. And Lin had heard a lot about these things from Su Xiaolan during the past few days, and he felt like Su Xiaolan was really good at running a family. It really wasn't easy for her to manage the sect so well. When he had disappeared, the 4-9 Immortal sect was still the weakest of the 5 great sections. Now, it had become the leader of the 5 great sects, and it was all thanks to Su Xiaolan's hard work. Enlin gave a brief speech and introduced the new elder of the 4-9 Immortal sect, Dongfang Zhuangshi. This matter caused another uproar in the sect. Dongfang Zhuangshi, demonic blood Kirin, Dao integration pinnacle stage. He was virtually the most powerful being in the entire realm, and now he had become an elder of the 4-9 Immortal sect. If news of this were to spread, the 4-9 Immortal sect would probably dominate the headlines for a long time. The speech drew to a conclusion. Being the leader of the 5 great sects is not the pinnacle of the 4-9 Immortal sect. We have only spent 100 years to become the number 1 immortal sect in the Kingdom of the 9 States, and we still have countless years to climb. The 4-9 Immortal sect will not only become the number 1 sect on the Taichu continent, but we will also become the number 1 sect in the entire universe. Do you have the confidence to make the name of the 4-9 Immortal sect resound throughout the entire universe? In the face of their sect leader's arrogant roar, the eyes of the several thousand core disciples of the sect became bloodshot, and a ball of fire ignited in their chests. Yes, their reply reverberated throughout heaven and earth. This was the conviction of countless monstrous geniuses who harbored this dream and shouted out from the bottom of their hearts. Not only the clown, Bai Ling, Su Xiaolan, and the others, but even Enlin's expression changed upon seeing this. All right, let's continue. Enlin smiled and walked off the platform. At this moment, thunderous applause and cheers erupted. Continue, continue. Sect Leader Enlin, I love you. Sect Leader Xiaolan, we love you too. A female disciple with a strong will to live added. Countless disciples chanted Sect Leader Enlin's name at the top of their lungs. There was a scorching light in their eyes, and a scorching fire burned in their hearts. Fireworks blossomed in the sky, and a series of youthful, mature, smiling faces appeared. All of them were so beautiful and filled with hope. That man had lit up a light in their hearts, and they would chase after that light without stopping. Chapter 1668. The sect leader's speech concluded, and the ceremony continued. There were all types of interesting activities, and the entire Dao Plaza was filled with laughter and joy. Enlin sat on a lounge chair and enjoyed Yiling's thoughtful massage service. Her nimble hands landed on one acupoint after another with unerring accuracy, and Yiling's unique vital energy flowed into his body through the acupoints before circulating through his meridians and caressing his entire body. Enlin let out a long, nasal moan in comfort. Immortal cultivators also had their own set of massage techniques that were unique to them. It was fine if one didn't enjoy it, but it was very easy to become addicted to it after experiencing it once. It was simply too comfortable. He could even munch on a few valuable spirit fruits when he felt like it. This was a wonderful life. Enlin drank a cup of immortal wine before turning towards Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan was playing a very simple game with the sect disciples, which was to guess the number of the die. Cultivators naturally couldn't use any spell techniques or divine abilities when playing this game. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to play at all. However, this was a game of pure probability, and Su Xiaolan's chances of winning were still extremely high. In her words, once a cultivator reached the Dao integration stage, they would gain an extremely powerful sense of heaven and earth. This kind of sense could even transcend the power of the mortal world and allow them to peer into the internal relationships of certain things. Simple foresight was far too easy for her. Master, a crisp, pleasant voice sounded from behind him. What is it? And Lin was perplexed. Yiling massaged Lin's shoulder with a perplexed expression. When I was giving you a massage, I felt like your body was slowly hardening, as if it was transforming in a certain direction. And Lin's expression stirred, and he inspected his own body before coming to a sudden realization. I'm cultivating a cultivation method that will have a side effect, which is that I'll become a beautiful woman. And Lin explained with a smile. Beautiful woman? The kind of woman who'll become like Jade. Master is so awesome. And Lin injected his consciousness into his own body. Heavenly Venerate Yu Qiong's true intent had already been compressed into a small ball for Lin to absorb. This was a time of temporary peace, and it was time to absorb Heavenly Venerate Yu Qiong's true intent. Tomorrow then, Lin made up his mind. He then turned his gaze to the system's realm pane. The missions had been refreshed after he reached the return to void intermediate stage. Lin had not looked at it yet. At that time, the situation was urgent, and he had an important mission to complete. He did not want to look at the new mission at all, lest it affect his mood. Now that he was mentally prepared, he anxiously looked at the realm column. Return to void final stage condition. Swallow a sun. Lin, the mission requirement was very simple. It was just one sentence, so simple that it made one's hair stand on end. Lin suddenly burst into laughter as a defeated expression appeared on his face. What's wrong, Master? I can sense that your aura is very unstable, Yiling asked with a concerned expression. Lin's veins suddenly popped out, and he said furiously, Swallow the sun alive? CKU system. The man who had been lying leisurely on the lounge chair a moment ago had completely exploded. Yiling was also given a fright. Master, what's wrong? She intertwined her fingers with one another as she spoke with a hint of indignation and self-blame in her eyes. Is my massage making you uncomfortable? It's none of your business. And Lin took a deep breath and tried with all his might to calm his exploding emotions. Even though he was mentally prepared for this, he was still completely blown away by this new system mission. Swallow the sun? What was the sun? It was the embodiment of light and heat in all worlds. It was the vital spirit of fire, the source of light, and an inviolable existence of extreme yang. Just its surface temperature alone was several thousand degrees, and its core temperature was in the tens of millions of degrees. How was he supposed to swallow the sun? Was he sure he wouldn't burn himself to death? No, the sun was so huge. Even if it wasn't hot, he was still going to stuff himself to death. Was there a way to solve this? No. This was a King unsolvable mission. Lin had already broken down, and he lay limply on the lounge chair with a resigned expression. Master, do you really think you're all right? Yiling looked at Lin with a sympathetic expression, and she couldn't help but caress his cheek as she spoke in a gentle voice. Tell little Ling what you need to do. Perhaps little Ling can help you. And Lin finally came to his senses as he felt the warm and smooth sensation on his cheek. Little Ling, what do you think a person would do if they wanted to swallow an entire sun? What? Yiling blinked her large, lively eyes in a hesitant manner. Sleep? What? Why would I need to sleep? And Lin faltered upon hearing this. In a dream, all the absurd things can be realized, Yiling replied with a serious expression. And Lin, all right, it looked like this was completely impossible in the eyes of a normal person. Sigh, little Ling, your master might be stuck at the return to void intermediate stage forever. And Lin looked up into the sky with despair on his face. Swallow a sun? How could the system even think of something like that? Even if Master's cultivation base remains stagnant, he will still be the most powerful hero in my eyes, Yiling said with a serious expression. For some reason, Lin felt a sense of relief upon hearing this. It was good to have such a thoughtful girl. He hadn't doted on her for nothing. Su Xiaolan had secured a resounding victory in the dice-guessing event, and she was just about to show off to Lin when she discovered Lin lying on the lounge chair like a dead fish with a pair of lifeless eyes, as if he had lost all his life pursuits and beliefs. Su Xiaolan was given a massive fright upon seeing this. Lin, are you all right? A fragrant scent wafted toward him, and Su Xiaolan appeared before Lin in the blink of an eye. She laid a flawless hand onto Lin's forehead, and her divine sense surged directly into Lin's body to assess his injuries. I don't see any problems. Su Xiaolan's brows furrowed slightly as she murmured. Could it be that the divine Tao that heavenly venerate Yu Qiong left in your body is making you feel uncomfortable? And Lin grabbed on his Xiaolan's hand and pressed it to his heart. It's this place that's uncomfortable. I feel like my heart has already died. I need a kiss to recover. Su Xiaolan glowered at Enlin. Fireworks suddenly erupted in the night sky again. Her holy and flawless features were extremely mesmerizing under the illumination of the rainbow flames. Enlin was a little entranced by this sight, and she suddenly leaned forward and pecked him on the lips. Enlin only felt a warm and soft sensation on his lips before they parted. Only the lingering fragrance remained to serve as a testament to the beauty of that moment. "How are you feeling? Do you feel better?" A faint smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. Enlin sprang up from the lounge chair as if he had been injected with chicken blood. "I've been revived. F***CK, swallowing a sun. Even if I, Enlin, can't progress any further, I'm still your daddy." Chapter 1669. Swallow a sun? What do you mean by swallow a sun? Su Xiaolan faltered slightly upon hearing Enlin's words before coming to her senses. Unable to progress to the return to void final stage, swallow a sun. Could it be that you have to swallow a sun in order to progress to the return to void final stage? Su Xiaolan stared at Enlin with astonishment on her face. Enlin nodded with an aggrieved expression. Su Xiaolan's lips twitched with sympathy. "Enlin, I have to say, your cultivation method sure is unique." Enlin heaved a forlorn sigh in his heart. "It's not like I want to be unique. It's all the system's fault. However, swallowing a sun isn't impossible," Su Xiaolan suddenly said. Enlin's eyes lit up as he gripped tightly onto Su Xiaolan's hand. "There's still a chance? How can I swallow a sun?" An awkward expression appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. The gods of creation can do whatever they want in their world. They have invincible bodies, so they should be able to swallow a sun. Enlin, I'm just an ordinary return to void stage cultivator. Do I have to create a world and create a sun for myself to swallow? This was something that the gods of creation could do, but he was only a return to void stage cultivator? I can't do it. Enlin's heart stirred, and he called for Tina. Enlin smiled at the sight of the beautiful fairy flying toward him. "Little Na, do you have a way to create a sun in your divine mirror world for me to eat?" Tina stared blankly at Enlin for a long while before laying a hand on Enlin's forehead. "Divine technique, idiot appraisal." Enlin, a confused expression appeared on the little fairy's face. "Huh, your brain isn't damaged." Enlin almost threw up a mouthful of blood. "Idiot appraisal, my ***s. I'm seriously discussing the feasibility of swallowing the sun with you, yet you treat me like a fool." Tina finally knew that Enlin was serious upon seeing the dark expression on Enlin's face. She stared at him with astonishment on her face as she exclaimed, "Giant Enlin, why do you want to eat a sun? What's so bad about living? I just want to ask, can you let me swallow a sun while I'm still alive?" Enlin snapped. Tina heaved a forlorn sigh. The sun isn't a giant fireball. It's the representation of light and heat. In fact, it's imbued with the will of the entire world, and it holds a paramount position in this world. I know what you're thinking. You just want to try swallowing a sun in the divine mirror world. But to be honest, even if I create the weakest sun, you might not be able to swallow it. Enlin caught the keyword. Not necessarily. Does that mean there's a chance? I don't know. Tina was unsure. Then I can try. I'll try it after I absorb heavenly venerate Yu Qiong's Tao intent. Enlin didn't want to pass up on any opportunities in order to improve his cultivation base. Thus, Enlin and Tina made an agreement, and their moods were a lot better. Enlin continued to enjoy the sect celebration. He was genuinely happy to see all of the sect disciples, as well as his friends and beast pets, reaping the fruits of their labor. At this moment, a burst of raucous cheers erupted from a nearby stage. Over 1,000 disciples looked up at the stage with scorching anticipation in their eyes. A beautiful and enticing melody began to play. A woman in a red dress with a veil over her face and golden jade bells on her bare feet danced to the beat. Her long sleeves danced like dragons and snakes, and her figure was lithe and graceful. At the same time, her steps were light and graceful, as if she were treading on the moon and stars, creating an extremely graceful and ethereal sight. Even from Lin's perspective, this dance was extremely outstanding. Even though the woman's face couldn't be seen, her clear and bright eyes seemed to be saying, "I'm a beauty, I'm a beauty, I'm a beauty." Many of the disciples on the Tao Plaza had their eyes focused on the woman. Not only was her dance extremely beautiful, but her figure was also superb. Not only was her body exquisite, but it was also extremely soft and supple, as if she had no bones in her body. The dance drew to a conclusion, and everyone fell silent. Only after short while did someone come to their senses and start clapping. Thunderous applause and raucous cheers erupted. The dancer in a red dress had conquered the hearts of countless prodigies of the Kingdom of the Nine States with just a single dance. Even Lin couldn't help but clap for her. Her exquisite dance was unmatched in this world. This woman's dance was one of the best in the 4-9 Immortal sect, and even the entire Kingdom of the Nine States. The dancer in a red dress made her way down the stage before making her way over to a man and waving a hand shyly. This was the complete opposite of her confident demeanor on stage. And Lin's mouth gaped open upon seeing this, and his eyes widened to the size of saucers. Su Xiaolan seemed to have anticipated Lin's reaction, and she couldn't help but cover her mouth as she chuckled lightly. The man in front of the dancer in a red dress was no random passerby. This was the pavilion lord of the 4-9 Immortal sects Spirit Pavilion, Xianyuan Cheng. Was my dance good?" the dancer asked in a quiet voice. A warm smile appeared on Xianyuan Cheng's face. "Very good. Both your movements and your eyes are on point." The dancer in red was still looking at Xianyuan Cheng with rippling eyes, and anyone could see the emotions welling up in her eyes. "You dance very well. I really like it," Xianyuan Cheng added after a moment of thought. The dancer in a red dress averted her gaze, but she couldn't disguise the smile in her eyes. She took off her veil, revealing a peerless face with an undisguised smile. At this moment, everyone was stunned. Not only was the dancer in a red dress an exceptional dancer, but her beauty was also astonishing. She looked at the man before her with a vibrant smile. "What about now? Do you like me even more?" Xianyuan Cheng nodded in embarrassment before turning his eyes elsewhere. The dancer in a red dress smiled even more elatedly as she danced on the spot again. All of the surrounding disciples began to jeer at her. Big Brother Cheng is shy? And Lin was astonished. After a while, Lin came to his senses, and he glowered at the dancer in a red dress. Who is this female disciple? How dare she seduce Big Brother Cheng? Hee, are you feeling sorry for her? Su Xiaolan chuckled, and Lin forced himself to calm down. It was quite clear that not only was the dancer in a red dress interested in Xianyuan Cheng was also interested in the dancer in a red dress, and the two of them were clearly quite close. "So what's going on?" And Lin grabbed onto Su Xiaolan's hand with a curious expression. "Take a look at Xu Honglan first," Su Xiaolan replied with a smile. And Lin turned toward the woman in a red dress, and for some reason, he was struck by a sense of familiarity, but he couldn't recall where he had seen her. This piqued his curiosity even more. "Don't keep me guessing, Xiaolan." And Lin grabbed onto Su Xiaolan's hand and urged. Su Xiaolan smiled. "It's a long story, so I'll tell you the main point.